welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to be avatared today because it's a weekend and I'm just really relaxed. But we are going to talk about cryptocurrency. Well, we're going to talk electronic currency just in general, the benefits of even just how it's going to go down, the future of it, and just this subject just in general. It's very important to cover stuff like this because it's just a part of our fabric now. It's a part of what we may have to face in the future, whether we want to or not. Got a couple things going on, so I'm gonna just kind of give some overviews. I will answer some questions as we go along, and stuff that's like some of it has already been asked, but I want to make sure that I get that in for this live, and all those types of things. I actually am looking for some stuff that I needed to because I feel like there's no labeling for this necessarily. So bear with me because there's quite a bit going on before I actually went live and didn't want to take too much time with this. But let's just start with it and then we can do all of the other stuff later. But we are going to be talking about electronic currency. And let's just start with what is electronic currency. And the term digital currency refers to the form of currency that is like available only in a digital or electronic form. It literally is what it is named. And it's also called like digital money or electronic money, electronic currency, cyber cash, all of these types of things you'll hear. It just means that it's not fiat. There's no physical form for it. And I know that a lot of you are familiar with, like, say, for example, cryptocurrency, coin based, and all of those types of currencies that are actually electronic currencies, a version of electronic currencies. And then, so it can't be handled or stored or manipulated in any way to a certain extent. And then consumers and business can use digital currencies to execute transactions and trades. This currency may not be used by our countries or communities. So again, fiat currency is going to be the most used currency because people feel like it's the safest. Now the dollar is starting to it's starting to be less valuable, for lack of a better description. And the reason why is not necessarily because of cryptocurrency, but not cryptocurrency, for electronic currency, but it's just in general that we're trying to. It is said, okay, I'll say it that way, that we are trying to go over to the whole electronic monies. And I always say there is somewhat of a danger in that, and some of you might disagree when I say there's danger in that. Just because I feel like it's easier to lock. So let's say, for example, for those of you that know, FTX was when we had Bankman went in. That's the name of the person that was running that company, and he was actually stealing money. The first thing he did was go in and lock all of his investors out of their accounts, so that he could actually cipher the money out of there. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, it's not as easy to do that if it's like a live bank or if it's something like that. But if you get some takeaways, we're talking about digital currency for those of you that just joined us. I didn't put a label on it, but that's what we're going to be talking about. And it's because it's going to be important. I understand that everybody's like, oh, we got digital currency. It's a boring subject. I don't want to talk about it. But it's to your benefit. If you run a business, if you're starting to see that in this time in life, we're in a turbulent time. So this isn't exactly the best of times, and unless you're able to bury your head in the sand, which a lot of people can do, it's not to your best interest to do it. It's time for you to just sort of take your head out and just sort of start looking at all of these new things that are coming in. Now, you know that I talked about AI prior to that. Now we're talking about digital currency. And just some takeaways from that. Digital currencies, are currencies that are only only accessible with computers and mobile phones because they only exist in electronic form, as I stated earlier. Typically, digital currencies are not required and are often the cheapest method of trading currencies. All cryptocurrencies are digital currencies, but not all digital currencies are cryptocurrencies. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in this. And then some of the advantages of digital currency are that they enable sort of the seamless transfer of value and can make the transactions cost cheaper. And we've all tried to sort of wire, fiat currency. It can be quite expensive, and it can be time consuming because it's not going to happen right away. And then some of the disadvantages of digital currency are that they really can be volatile to trade and susceptible, of course, as I said earlier, to sort of hacking. How you guys doing? Welcome, welcome. So we have that kind of going on. And then, so digital currencies do not have like physical attributes, and they're only available in digital form. Now, this just has to be that way. I mean, there's no other way to it's not digital if it's anything that's going to be physical. That's fiat. What are you guys asking me? Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome, welcome. Somebody said, "Why can't we see?" Yeah, it's Sunday, guys. I'm trying, and I want you to focus on the facts of what I'm saying, and just not be distracted by like things I might have in the background or any type of. I really want to get us into the subject and sort of have everybody kind of advance with this subject. Digital currency is real for us. It's also an investment for a lot of people. And using cryptocurrency as the example of digital currency, that's a reality for people. So we want to make sure that we're understanding before we start trying to invest in it. A lot of people, when they did the whole cryptocurrency and the FTX, and we all learned our lesson on the FTX scandal, and I'll go over that if you guys don't remember that, but whomever invested in cryptocurrency immediately is going to remember that scandal. And that was when, what was his name, Sam Bankman-Fried, basically was using investors in his company, FTX, and their accounts, cryptocurrency accounts, for personal use. We all know that's illegal. I mean, there's a billion Ponzi schemes that have taken place over the years, exaggerated number, but, and we all know that that's what happened with FTX. We also know that they used celebrities and they paid people and they made you trust them when they weren't trustworthy. Now, this can happen anywhere. It is less likely to happen at a very large bank with multiple locations. But cryptocurrency, you can be faceless even in cryptocurrency or any digital currency. So, I mean, it's really something that we're already having enough. Hi, how you doing? We're already having enough going on with it being just fiat currency or with people just trading from banks. So there's always that concern because we remember from FTX, which is why I brought that up. I said it earlier. What was the first thing he did? And for those of you that were with me about 8 minutes ago, I said he locked everybody out of their accounts. And he was able to do it in a matter of seconds. So that's fast. But there are advantages to cryptocurrencies. There are advantages to just digital currencies in general. So they have a utility similar to physical currencies. They can be used on products and goods, pay for services. They can also find a restricted use among like certain online communities, such as gaming sites, gambling portals, and social media networks as well. Digital currencies also enable instant transactions. This is the best part about it. They can be seamlessly executed across borders. I mean, like literally. And for instance, like someone in the United States may make payments to like a counterparty in Singapore, like using the digital currency, provided that they both are connected to the same network, obviously. There are different, I don't know if the platforms is the correct word, but I'm trying to use as layman language as possible. But ways, another way to connect, to not connect, but to have your currency stored, I guess is it. Somebody correct me if you have a better way to say that, but I'm trying to say it in just basic terms. Digital currencies can transfer value. Using digital currency requires like a mental shift in the existing framework of for currencies, by the way. where they are associated with sales and purchase transactions, foods, goods, and services. Digital currencies, however, extend the concept, right? So the concept is no more just, crypto. And I think we need to make sure before we start investing in stuff. If you look at the more advanced profit wise, for lack of a better description, I don't want to say people with more money, but the richer people aren't investing in the actual currency itself. They're investing mostly in the technologies. So you might want to keep that in mind when you hear somebody and I love some of these people that are endorsing cryptocurrencies or just digital currencies in general. But keep in mind that a lot of them are invested in the software. So, of course, you're going to promote something that you have that type of money invested in. I know when I invested in cryptocurrency, I did use a Bitcoin, like most people tell you to start with. And I wasn't as happy because it was a volatile investment. I feel like I was better served by just making, what I could make and then just kind of pulling out. Now, some people don't agree. How are you? You don't agree with me? Do you still have cryptocurrencies? You do? Someone said yes. Anybody else have cryptocurrencies? Yes, yes, yes. How come we can't see me? It's Sunday. I'm not coming in. But I did want to get this subject out there. Now, virtual currencies. Well, let's just sort of break down the different types of digital currencies, right? So cryptocurrencies, they're digital currencies that are used to secure a verified transaction in a network, for lack of a better description. It's also used to manage and control and create the creation of such currencies. So, like Bitcoin, for example, of cryptocurrencies, depending on the jurisdiction of the cryptocurrency, may or may not be regulated. So, one of the things that is a big thing for cryptocurrencies, particularly that they're not regulated. Now, some people like the fact that they're not regulated. And I don't mean it in a sinister way or it's used with an illegal intent. I mean, some people like that because you don't have to have, if it was regulated, just think about how many laws and rules and everything that would sort of shut down the free reign that you kind of have with cryptocurrencies right now. But the talk is that perhaps it could be regulated in the future. And that may not be what we're all, necessarily wanting, those of us in the cryptocurrency space at this particular time. Now, it's important to know that cryptocurrencies are considered virtual currencies because they are unregulated and exist only in a digital form. So part of that is that they are not regulated, as I said earlier. So keep that in mind for those of you that are a little bit more of a cautious type of investor. It's not for those people that are just trying to build your portfolio on that. We don't want that. What you really want to think about it is in addition to your portfolio, less reasonable, for lack of a better description, than I would say gold or silver, which we know are tried and tested methods that people add to their portfolios. Now, gold, on the other hand, is a safe haven, right? It's used to maintain wealth. Just going on to gold just a little bit. I used to be a broker. Everybody knows this. But I think people misunderstand why you buy it. Some people might have $20,000 and they're like, I'm going to put this in gold. And you're thinking, yeah, okay, that's fine. But remember, the goal is to keep your wealth. It's to maintain it. It's sort of to be a safe haven so you don't lose money that's just sitting there. So I feel it's a better investment the more money you get. Because it is not necessarily, it will grow your money, obviously, but that's not intended for that. It's intended to maintain wealth regardless of whether the dollar goes up or down, whether or not you have inflation, whether or not there's deflation to prevent inflation. So it's one of those things, we call it a safe haven for that reason. It is really it's utilized everywhere. So you will maintain that standard of wealth wherever you go. So it's 20,000 might be nice. Maybe you do want to, just have it sitting there, and you just don't want it just sitting there not doing anything for you. But it's usually generally more money. We're talking 150,000 or more. We've had people, of course, invest millions into gold specifically. Silver, everybody knows it's been called the poor man's gold. This is the place where you say to start. If someone comes to me and says, I have $20,000, I generally don't recommend that they get $20,000 worth of gold. I recommend that they start with some silver. As your money grows, move it over into some gold. I do recommend, even to people that are using a large amount of wealth, that they also get silver as well. That you have both in your portfolio, not just gold or just silver. I mean, never just silver unless you're just starting out, pretty much, unless you've got lower amounts to put in there. But do put it in there. This is not to discredit silver. I think that is a good place to start for people that have 20,000, 10,000, something like that. Any less than that, and it will still work, but it's just not going to be as beneficial, right? And then also, you want to make sure when you're investing in gold and silver that you keep it for 3 years. It's not going to be that investment that you like cryptocurrency. You can put cryptocurrency in, build a little bit of wealth for a little bit of time, and then pull the money out. But it doesn't work like that if it's gold or silver. Okay? Gold or silver, it's to maintain, it's a safe haven, so you keep it for at least 3 years. If you don't plan on keeping that $20,000 for at least 3 years, you're basically wasting it. Even if you had more money, it wouldn't make sense for you to put money into silver or gold if you plan on taking it out. Now, cryptocurrency, on the other hand, is different. Cryptocurrency is very volatile. It isn't stable, and if you're banking on the actual currency itself, you're probably going to lose money more than you will gain it if you're not investing in the dashboards, if you're not investing in the actual platforms, which is expensive. So this is why you will find people buying the actual currency, just regular people buy the actual currency, but business owners, people that have institutional portfolios that they're using, seeking to grow, are not investing in. I mean, they do invest in the cryptocurrency itself, but that's not where it is. It's really in the actual software itself. Anybody got a question on that one? Hi, you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking, for those of you just joining us, we're talking about digital currencies. We're talking about little gold and silver. I'll throw that in there. We're talking about the smartest ways to invest it, what it is, where it's going to go. We're going to cover a lot in this topic because it's a subject of interest and has a future to it. So we want to make sure we're getting that we have to be aware of what's happening. Even if you don't invest a one dime into cryptocurrency, you still need to know what it is and what's going on and how it works. Or just currency, electronically speaking, period. So let's go into that. I was talking about cryptocurrency. Most people are familiar with that. Now, a virtual currency, a little bit different, okay? They are also unregulated digital currencies. They're controlled by the developers and the founding organizations, consisting of various stakeholders involved in the process. So I prepared you for that. You just heard me talk about that. That's what the virtual currencies are. They're not necessarily investing institutional dollars into cryptocurrency. They're encouraging you to get cryptocurrency, but they're investing in virtual currencies. This is more dedicated towards the algorithms. Like, so virtual currencies can also be algorithmically controlled by a defined network or protocol. An example of virtual currency is like gaming network tokens whose economics is defined and controlled by the developers. So now you're starting to see a distinction, and you will see that as if you see it also in gold investment and silver investment, right? You'll know a lot of people that have a lot of institutional dollars or have corporations will invest not in just in gold and silver in themselves, but the gold and silver companies. So they're promoting what they have. Yeah, they're telling you the truth in some part of it, but they're not telling you the whole of it. That they're actually the stakeholders in the platforms or the institutions that are actually dispensing what you're purchasing. And it's important to know that before you jump and put all your money in there. You have to understand what you're putting your money into, okay? There's also central bank digital currencies or CBDCs. You might have heard the CBDCs quoted in somebody's explanation of something without actually defining it. They're regulated also. Now, these are regulated. You'll hear a lot of regulated in the business part of it. Digital currencies, they're issued by central banks of a country. So a CBDC can be a supplement or replacement for a traditional fiat currency. Unlike a fiat currency, which exists in both physical and digital form, the CBDCs exist purely in digital form. Like, say, England, Sweden, Uruguay, those are the places that are, a few of the nations that are considering, plans to launch a digital version of their, like native fiat currency. So it's important to know this. You're like, oh my God, why do I need, Alex, why are you giving this information? It's because you need to know this, especially if you're planning on continuing to invest, which most people are, in the future of our economic system. You need to understand where our structure might be going to, and you need to understand what part you play in that structure. Hi, you guys. Welcome, welcome. No, you can't see me today. Oh, okay, you guys. But maybe another day. Maybe I want you to focus on what's happening right here. But yes, do I think it's important to vote? To vote? You mean invest? If you mean invest, because that's what we're really talking about here, in the CBDCs. Well, okay, that's usually institutional dollars, but I'm pretty sure in a certain way, if you have, the dollars, for lack of a better description, to do that, you can try to be in that game. It's going to be hard to keep up because that's where you're starting getting to the billionaires game. And there is a difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. I'm sorry. People are like, it's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same on millions. And it's all the same on billions. But the millions to billions could be the difference of how much you actually have your rate of return. Everybody knows this, right? But it also is how free your actual currency is for you. This may sound absolutely insane to most people, but most things the regular people pay for are a part of the packages that come free when you are a person coming in there with a lot more money. So, where you may buy gold and invest your money in it, if you put your institutional dollars into a gold company, those coins come to you for free in a technical sense, right? It's like that Birkin bag. They gave them to all the billionaires, but everybody else had to pay for them. Okay? So learn the game of money. You don't have, it doesn't matter where you are. Understand it, know it, then you can grow what you have into what you need it to be, you see. Because most people just want to be comfortable. But you're not going to get there not understanding where we are in our economic foundation as a country. Also in the world, right? Hi, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, it's some interesting to some people. I'm thinking that it might not be as interesting to everybody, but it gives you the option to want to be aware of it. How do I know so much about gold? I did answer that earlier. So if you would look at the earlier video, it does tell you that I was a broker for gold. Yeah, I mean, somebody's asking about investing in crypto. I have to remember because you can't see me. I really need to make sure I read the questions. But people are saying, how do you get into the platform part of it? And that's, you're talking about the boards and stuff like that. Boards meaning like where the cryptocurrency is being displayed. Really goes into the software. So you're not really thinking about the board itself. You're thinking about investing into the software, which can be an expensive game. But if you have that, okay, so if you're worth a lot of money, as you are, you can play the game. You won't play it as high as others, but you will start to build, and you will gain more by doing that. I would say than you would, and it's also a gamble because no matter what you do, it's still a volatile place to be. It's not something that people that are boomers or even some of the Gen Xers and are willing to leave what is traditional, which would be gold, and then ultimately fiat currency. So they're going to try to find a balance where maybe the millennials or younger millennials into, of course, I don't even know if Z invests, but are going to be more apt to go ahead and take that as the future of finances, as the future money, without question, right? Anybody else? Okay, we'll keep going. So you can use CBDCs, have been suggested as a means of enhancing speed or security of centralized payment systems. It lowers the cost and dangers of handling cash. They're just going to be less risky. You're not going to be touching anything. You're not going to be carrying anything. You're not going to be transferring. We have armored car trucks that get robbed on a regular basis. It's not going to be that if you're using digital currency, obviously, or CBDCs, or anything, even virtual currency. It's just digital, so you just don't have to have it with you. So being robbed in that way changes. Criminals will always be criminals. It'll still exist. But there's ways to protect software a little bit better than it is to have to physically protect a person to a outbreak or a robbery, that's going on in real time, kind of thing. All right. It is promoting greater financial inclusion for people and companies without access to like conventional banking services. I don't want to say like the mob, but it could be, and somebody's laughing. It could be an example, okay? But just if you don't use traditional banking or you don't trust banks, there's a whole group of people that just do not trust the bank. I don't care if they buy gold in their portfolio, they're going to buy hard, tangible gold that they can hide and put somewhere in their house. It's not going to be, that sort of thinking where they're going to, put it in the bank or put it in a vault in the bank or, I'm thinking of a box, a security box. They'll keep it in a safe in the house somewhere. They may also make like border payments easier and a lesser need for foreign exchange currencies. All right. That's for those of you that invest overseas. Okay. So the introduction of the U.S. CBDCs are present. They present certain difficulties, like for instance, like for Congress to authorize the insurance of a CBDC, there must be like a robust privacy and security infrastructures that have to be put in place. They're just not there necessarily currently. They're sort of a skeleton version of it, but just not anything really put in place. The government must also weigh the possible impact of the monetary policies and the operational management of the switch from conventional money to the CBDCs. Okay? There's always risk, right? There's risk because it is software at the end of the day. It's a software. Somebody said with the advancements in software and the protection for softwares, yeah, we're still getting hacked. Yeah, banks are still, banks have had to go on super lockdown. So you can imagine if it's just available to you right there. In a matter of seconds, you can transfer millions and billions of dollars. If what type of technology are we going to, what type of security things are we going to have to put in place? An infrastructure that we currently have is not enough. If we're going to go to virtual money, digital currencies, it's veering more and more away from fiat currency, and we're going to use these these CBDCs. It's not gonna. We have to put in an infrastructure. I mean, if somebody tell me why they would think that that wouldn't be true, but it has to be specified to what it is. We can't use a system intended for something else. You know, on digital currency, it's gonna have to be something different, in my opinion, right? And I veer to think that some people do agree with me. We're talking about advantages and disadvantages of digital currencies. Faster transfer is always going to be, transaction times are always going to be a benefit. We like things instantly, especially if you're transferring money. You don't want to have to wait for it, 2, 3 days. Even when you're just going into your portfolio, we all know that feeling. It's there, but it's not there because you have to go into that portfolio. You got to wait the designated amount of time. You got to sign the designated amount of paperwork, and you have to mail that in because it has to be a live signature. And then, you know what I mean? It's like it's 3 to 4 days after you finish all that paperwork. Then you can get, it's those types of transactions, which we know are safety mechanisms, but also don't exist if you're using digital money. Not in the same way. I mean, it exists, but not in the same way. Hi, thank you for those of you that are joining us. We are talking about digital currencies. We're talking about monies that are in a digital form. And we're talking about what they are, the different types of them, explaining that they're not just cryptocurrencies. We're going into the CBDCs and what that's going to do. We're talking about different ways to invest in those platforms, who's doing what, all of those types of things. You came late. Did I say it was good to invest? I said there were different methods of investing. So you get to choose your method. Because I was saying that a lot of people invest. I hate to have to repeat information for those of you that stayed from the beginning. Thank you very much for being here. For those of you that started out, just answering that question. So if you go back a little bit, just not to bore the people that have already been here, there are different ways to invest in them. And I don't think it's a bad investment. I'm just necessarily not sure how solid it would be if you compare it to other investments. Not that it's bad or good, just that you want to keep these things in mind. And so that was the point of this whole video, actually. Yeah, so I have invested in cryptocurrency. Yes, I have. I absolutely have. I think that anything software based that's that structured and that that area of it is a little bit more regulated. So I do think that's a good idea. It might be a better idea, just because it's a benefit for cryptocurrency not to be regulated, but it's also a disadvantage for cryptocurrency not to be regulated. But again, digital currency is not just crypto. All right. And then it's like no physical manufacturing required. We don't have to print money. This can be a huge burden the more time we print money, the more times we print money as a country. We learned that from the past when we've had to print money, and it really made us, we had to pay for that. I mean, no pun intended, we paid for it, for the printing of the money. So we didn't necessarily want to have to do that. So on and so forth. Yes, thank you. You would rather see me. I appreciate that. Yeah, you probably wouldn't rather see me right now. I've got robes on. I'm pretty kicked back right now. You like my video on AI? Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, I am going to do a Q&A on the securities. Yes, I did a security video for those of you that are just joining us, and I talked about, what was relevant in that space and some of the things that they were doing. I learned a new one most recently that's not really new, but it's been, where they connect themselves to your wallet, your digital wallet. especially if you have an iPhone and or your Apple Pay. So, and they create an account similar to one you've already used. See, you have to understand that, and this is not to, this is going to digress for just a little bit so we can see what's coming up when I do the Q&A on this. You have to understand the idea is to look like you're doing stuff. So if they get connected to this, to look like you're making purchases to them. So they're going, so literally somebody went into my account, they found, or went into my Apple Pay. They found an account or knew of an account because remember they listen. We got to go back to the, it's okay. So they heard of me having an account for this certain company. They mimicked the name and of the company, but you can never fully mimic it. So it shows up differently in your bank. If you just looked at that, if I were just looking at that and not scrutinizing my everything, I might have thought it was just going to the same company. But I happen to know some information that they didn't know. So when I saw it, I immediately knew this company hadn't put this through. Now, the thing about it is that they used an old credit card, which is still connected to your account, even though it's off. So I just recently got that one. So those of you that are interested in that, that's a little taste of what we're going to have when we do the Q&A for that. And you're more than welcome to ask me questions about that. What I had to go in to do just to keep track, because you got to track everything when someone's doing this type of stuff to you. You got to keep it and give it to the police or whomever's tracking you. But what I found out is that I called the company. And the company's like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, I mean, we've been doing business for years. I'm like, no. Date here. Is this what happened? And the company was like, yeah, no. Point blank. It might look, and I sent them a copy of what was on my banking sheet. And they were like, for sure, this is not us. It looks like us. And they broke down how similar it looked, but they're telling you right now, this is definitely not us. So, and then I have one of the best bank securities ever. So they went in there and took care of it. But this is the kind of stuff that's going on. So I apply that to electronic money or digital money. Because if we have that going on now, the person earlier that said we don't need too much of an infrastructure, we can use what we had before. This is why you can't use what we had before. This is why we have to step up securities now before we even switch. I mean, we need stuff in place immediately so that we don't need, the transition is smooth. We start putting them in place now, in my opinion. We start protecting our digital currencies, giving what we could use to protect digital currencies, to protect our fiat currencies. And then if we have to switch over, they don't even get a chance to break in. You have to do it ahead of time. So, yeah, I think building an infrastructure is definitely needed. We even need a stronger infrastructure now. But we're building on that as we go along. There's entire units dedicated to this type of criminal, this type of crime. All right. Yes. Thank you. Hi, how are you? Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate you. Come in and out as you will. I would love to keep you all here, but it's an interesting subject for some people, but maybe not as much for others. So I'm trying to get it all in. So fast transfers, no physical manufacturing required. We talked about that. Monetary and fiscal policies implementation. So under the current currency regime, the Fed works through a series of intermediators. Okay. Mediaries, and then like banks and financial institutions, for lack of better description, and then to circulate money into the economy, right? The CBDCs can help circumvent it, basically, this mechanism, and enable a government agency to disperse payments directly to the citizens, right? They also simplify the production and distribution of methods by methods for, I guess, the needs of physical manufacturing and transportation of currency notes from one location to another. So it can go directly to the people. Let's just bottom line that, and that's a lot nicer because again, it goes back to where the speed is, but it also goes back to just not the need for the intermediate. 1 second, please. Sorry, I got to knock on the door. That's fine. Thanks. Sorry about that. Okay, so see, you can't even see, so that's a good thing. So that's kind of where another benefit, and then the to me my favorite part is that the transactions are cheaper. So cheaper transactions cost. If you ever had to move quite a bit of money from one area to another, currently it is expensive. Sometimes it costs a ridiculous amount just to it costs as much to send it as it is to I'm exaggerating, but it costs close to what it may take to send it. You're basically putting on a huge chunk of money onto the money that's yours, that you're actually sending to someone else. Digital currencies enable direct transactions within the network. So if a customer can pay a shopkeeper directly, as long as they are situated to, or they're connected to the same network, then the cost to do that, it's not going to be a cost. I mean, or very minimum, depending. If anything, we'll say the transactions between the different networks will at least be cheaper. So we're doing either zero, or if they're in different networks, at least it's cheaper, right? I don't expect, if that's going to be regulated, that might stay that way. It might have to because it's going directly to, but we would have to make that part of the infrastructure, part of the plan on when you start to transfer money. Currently, it is cheaper or non-existent. So when you're transferring cryptocurrencies. So as it gets bigger, if we start going to digital currency, or not cryptocurrency, digital currencies, if it gets bigger as we go into digital currencies and make that more of the norm, we need to put that also, in my opinion, inside the wording, because I'm a contracts person, that transaction fees from maybe on the same networks would be zero, and then maybe just as cheap if you have multiple networks that you're sending it to, or a different network than the one that you're actually on. Okay. You like to keep it cheap. I'm not cheap. I'm frugal though, but I definitely, if I can save some money on something, I'm definitely going to save it. I think it's just smarter that way if you can. Let's see. It's basically by cutting out the middleman who seeks the economic rent for processing the transactions, the digital currencies, just can make the overall cost of the transaction cheaper, basically. It's decentralized. Is another reason. A digital currency may be decentralized. This means that they are not controlled by any government or financial institution. Some of you are going to start just going, woohoo! For those of you that watch me that are sort of this sort of not anti-government, but you don't want everything regulated by the government. Decentralizing digital currencies make it more resistant to government interference, censorship, and manipulations. Decentralizations means the true control over the digital currency is spread over the border ranges and owners of the owners or the users, basically. So we're always going to make it better for each person and make it cheaper for each person. So if the government interferes, those regulations make sometimes things more difficult when it is intended to make it better. But it's not really intended to make it better in that sense. When you regulate something, it is to prevent and to create laws and policies so that if something goes wrong, you have somewhere to go. And they get to watch. So some people like that. Some people are like, hey, I'd rather have them paying attention to what's happening so we don't have to do all this. But then some of them says, well, it takes away the independence of having digital currency. which is why some of us want to go to digital currency in the first place. So I get both sides, as I often do. And I get that you're saying that, part of the reason that we wanted it to be not so heavily, not so heavily regulated. Maybe okay a little bit, but not to the extent that it would be if it wasn't decentralized. Anybody? Questions, comments? Yeah, some of you are like really into crypto. Yeah, crypto, digital currency as a whole. Okay. You got to look at the business part of it. So don't just look at cryptocurrency only. Look at it as a whole. Very informative. Thank you. I tried. Thanks for letting me know. I try. Anybody else with anything? Just listening? Good stuff? You are not taking notes. Somebody made that up. They said they were taking notes. No, you're not. Okay. So, privacy, all right, because transactions with digital currency are not linked to personal data, users are given a high level of privacy and anonymity. They are therefore very helpful for those who want to protect the confidentiality of their financial dealings. This is huge benefit of digital currencies that you may not have with a bank, right? Or with our current fiat currencies. So I think privacy more than anonymity. I'm not really, I mean, unless you want to give a donation, but you can pretty much do that anonymously now anyway. But I feel like the ability to have your data not linked to it and people trying to search you down and find you and, search your driver's license and get the bank account number and all of these things and figure out who you are type of thing is going to be not there as much. This is not to say that the government, if they're regulated, won't have ways to do that. If they don't have ways now, right? They probably can. But it just makes you feel less anxiety about, people that have bad intentions, finding you. If you do a couple, $1 million worth of digital currency, it's different than having a well-known couple of $1 million, on you or, in form of a check or something that links your name and address and phone number to that amount of money. Right. right. True. Yes. Well, for some people, it depends on what you're linking. And this is not to say that, I think there's something to be said for the security at a bank. Certain banks have great security. They will lock your money down faster and let you know what's happened with it faster than you know. But with this sort of exchange, there's no data attached to it in that way. So privacy and anonymity come with that. So here's a good one. Accessibility around the world. This we all know. But anyone with an internet connection can utilize digital currencies from anywhere in the globe. Right? These services are therefore particularly helpful for people who do not have access to a conventional banking institution. In addition, many of these banking services only need access to the internet connection. Some geographical areas are not as developed. They don't have strong financial infrastructures. Digital currencies may be a stronger option for those people. It's hard to imagine that in America because everybody has internet, and it's like it's not even like rare. It's like I'm sure homeless people have access to the library and they still have internet connections. But this is not true around the world. It's not true everywhere. So, it makes it so that you can still, as long as you have some sort of, it'll make it so everybody has those connections because basically you're going to need them in order to participate in the digital currency. if it's part of that financial infrastructure, you will need those things. And it may advance some of these people a little bit more than they currently are. Right. All right, let's talk about some disadvantages. There's quite a few advantages of having this, but with every good thing, there's also some bad things. And with every bad thing, there's always some good things. So let's go into here's a huge one. Now, for those of you that buy gold and silver or both, you if you're not obsessed with making sure the man doesn't confiscate your gold like they did back in back in the day, and you have it buried somewhere in your house or whatever. Interesting story about that. Just to digress, so we had an older gentleman who's about 88 pass away. And he had buried. Oh no, he didn't. This is a different story. We had an older gentleman. This one was around the same age, maybe 88, 90. And he called us up all frantic. Us meaning the gold company. And he was going in, and we were like, "I'm sorry, what are you trying to say you lost?" And he said, "I buried my gold in the backyard, and I can't find it." Because he had to have the physical gold. And I say all that to say, really what people do is store it in a dispensary. Very rarely do, and if you're not super boomer, do they actually get the physical gold. They actually get the physical gold, but they store it in a dispensary, which also costs you money, by the way. And it's the same thing if you have storage and infrastructure issues that they worked out in gold, but now they have to work that out here. It's just why we do, not require physical wallets, and digital currency have their own set of requirements of storage and processing. An internet connection is necessary, and as are smartphones and services related to their provisionaries. An online wallet with robust security are also necessary to store digital currencies. So storing them, and I gave you the example of how just storing them on your phone can be a problem when I told you that someone got into my Apple Pay, basically made a checkout to themselves for a company that I had used at one time. We also have to think about protection and infrastructure for the storage facilities. There's mass security on a gold dispensary. It just is. You're not going to just have gold sitting in there and nobody really have a Fort Knox type of security. So we would need that sort of level of Fort Knox with what we store our money on. Because again, it's still a computer. At the end of the day, it's still software. So we have to really think about that. And that takes me into the next one, which is hacking potential. Digital currency is susceptible to hacking. Hackers can steal digital currencies from online wallets, i.e., I told you my story, or change the protocol for digital currencies, making them, unusable. Using FTX is the example, where you're stored somewhere, somebody either hacks it or somebody locks it. And this is the game that they play now, is the digital game. It's locking your stuff, so either you can't get to it or it takes you having to reset something to get in it, or they try to write checks to themselves with that, with them being in your digital wallet. They hack into them. So these are things that we have trouble with now again. So we have to keep that in mind. We cannot just store them anywhere. We have to create a structure for storage. Because a criminal-minded person, in real life, they think in opportunities. They're opportunistic, criminally speaking. And so if they see any type of flaw, if you forgot to if you stored it somewhere and then you're just leaving it there for, weeks and weeks, months, years and years and years, they're going to take that in mind, that money's just sitting in there, just sitting in the wallet, just sitting in the, so this is going to create a whole new set of hacking. So we might as well prepare ourselves now. Um, there are numerous cases of hacks in cryptocurrency, right? Have been proven. Securing digital systems and currencies are is a work in progress. So it has to be consistent. With any type of hacking, you have to have it monitored constantly. So our wallets and all of those things are going to need to be monitored constantly. It has to be, which is going to require some regulation because we have to have some penalties for these. Not that we don't have federal laws in place already. For those of you that don't know, once you do anything on a cell phone, on a computer, on a in and out of a bank, you have already reached federal level. Period. If it's a business phone, a business computer, somebody that works from home is using it for business, you just increase your time right there. So criminals, they're invincible, right? They think they're invincible. So we have to make it known if you have millions of dollars sitting in cryptocurrency account. You got to figure out how to keep it from, it has to be surveyed to keep it from being blocked. Why they find time, because a lot of times when your stuff is blocked, it's so they can find time to do something. Criminals think like that, they need more time. Like they're mad at you for not giving them more time, so let me just block you because you keep going in trying to get your money. We don't need this. We need more time. So they'll go in and block it. To me, it sounds ridiculous. To a criminal, this makes perfect sense, right? They need you to stop going in your stuff, so they will block your access to your crypto or access to your digital funding or access to your institutional portfolio because that's digital because they want more time. So knowing that is some of the motive needs to be how we secure it, right? And then we also know, of course, that you can just straight out figure out how to hack it. Hacking takes on a different turn. It doesn't necessarily mean breaking into. It could easily mean just connecting it to something, right? Maybe you don't, because the criminal mind thinks unusual. It doesn't think like regular people. It makes sense to someone to say, well, if I don't actually break into the wallet where the digital currency is stored, and I only connect it to something, then it's not really a crime. You know what I mean? It's like this type of thinking. So it's like, no, we need to be include that in the jargon when you start doing laws and making sure we get the legal parts of it in there to do some sort of infrastructure that we include those types of jargon. So you need lawyers that are well versed in making sure semantics are played. You know what I mean? So we get in there and make sure that the language doesn't have just brevity. We want it to be succinct. We want it to be acute. We want it to be sharp. We want it to be, very detail oriented. Because, the last thing you want is we have now a digital currency and everybody's stuff gets hacked. You can hack multiple at the same time. People are connecting, and then the criminal goes in there and says, well, it's not really. The criminal lawyer, defense attorney comes in there and says, you know what? They weren't in the actual folder. And the law says that this is the actual folder. And if they're in the folder, but they weren't in the folder, they were connected to, and then, all of a sudden the criminal gets off. We don't want that. If we're going to start digitizing stuff and making our valuable stuff, online more and more and more, including our actual money, we don't need this type of ability to let the criminals get away with it, right? And then, so the volatile value. Digital currencies used for trading can have wild price swings. For example, like a decentralized nature of cryptocurrency, we're using that as the example, but it's all digital currencies, has resulted in a capitalized digital currency whose prices have been prone to sudden changes based on investor whims. Now that's hard. That is a long-winded way of saying it's volatile, and how we're investing, because it's not regulated, and platform we use and where we're storing it, all of those things make a difference because it it speaks to the rise and fall of the currency. Using cryptocurrency as the example, right? Because cryptocurrency is extremely volatile. People are like, oh, it's not as bad as it used to be. But realistically speaking, if you were looking to invest and you chose cryptocurrency, you're going to go through some swings. And they're going to be more dramatic than the average, you know, um, investment. True. You think that's true? Yeah, thank you. Not necessarily if you know when to pull out. Well, then you're not using it. You're not keeping your money in there. You're pulling out like it depends on, what you hope somebody's asking, what's the benefits of cryptocurrency. It depends on what you hope to gain by it. It's another investment like anything else. So you have to do your homework, check it out, and see if it's for you. Other digital currencies have followed a similar price trajectory during their initial days. So it's not necessarily unusual, but it is, I would say, highly unusual in the sense that it's so quick. You end up really the first year in cryptocurrency losing money. If you follow it for a year, just a year, at the end of that year, more than likely you're going to lose money. I'm just saying. Don't believe me, put $100 in there. Only $100. Everybody can afford to lose that. Put $100 in cryptocurrency, follow it for a year, and come back and let me know what you did. What happened? Let's see. Somebody said Linden Dollars used an online game, Second Life, had a similar volatile price trajectory in its early days. Okay, thank you. Interesting. I don't know how many of you knew that. A lot of people knew that already. Oh, thank you. For those of you that are just joining us, here comes in some more people. We actually are talking about digital currencies as a whole. Digital currency does not necessarily mean cryptocurrency. It just means digital currencies as a whole. So we're talking digital currencies as a whole. We've come over some good benefits to it. We're all discussing some of the things that can be a cause for concern. We talked about how people are currently investing in it, and we talked about some of the dangers with where you store it, because it's really, I have to say it that way because it's really a big part of the whole hacking thing, and how we present the law as we evolve into this digital currency space. So you have limited acceptance at this point. It's one of the negatives. Digital currencies are still not commonplace. They're not commonly used as a means of payment, like say retailers or other enterprises. Because of this, using this for routine transactions are going to be challenging. And I think all of us know that. Through digital currencies have gained in popularity, there's still limited functionalities in everyday transactions in just many places. It's not, some people just don't believe in it at all. And you're probably going to face that a little bit more than you're going to face, pay me in cryptocurrency, or pay me in digital currency. You're not going to see a lot of places say accept digital currencies. It takes time to get there, if we get there at all, because sometimes the old school methods prove to be more stable. So if we are going to have to continue this consistency and instability in this space, you will find that more and more people will go against it until it's on the side or non-existent. So it really depends. So we have to think about that. It really has to be something that has to make sense for everybody. And it doesn't at this point make sense for everybody. And it doesn't look like, for so many people that hold on to the fiat currency of the dollar, even though it's declining, seek to build that back up than to switch over entirely to a whole new structure. You have to remember there's a whole bunch of it's entire generations of people that never used a computer. Some people at certain ages still don't use a computer. They go literally into the physical bank. They write physical checks still. Some of them pay in money orders. So there's still entire generations of people that aren't computer, not that they're computer illiterate, they just simply don't want to use it. They're just not going to do it. They're stubborn. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you bill me and have to put it on my door, old school. I'm not going in there and, paying over the internet. I'm not taking a picture of a check and sending it into the bank. I'm going to go into the bank and put it in the bank. So when you have such a large group of people that are fighting to save the dollar, to make the dollar more valuable, to stick with that fiat currency, and it's a larger, more richer group than the up and comers that are developing money but not old money, and are developing new ideas but not that necessarily coincide with what the structure was from before. So you have a situation where if it was millennials or younger, young millennials or younger, they would have already switched over. They do everything. They stare at their phones for like 29 hours. But they don't have as much money. You might have been lucky and made $1 million, like, hey, I made it to the million club. But we're talking old money. We're talking about people that, have families that have been rich for years. And you have to compete against that type of experience. And it's probably not going to happen immediately. You have to convince them, and they're not the type that'll get convinced easy. So when you're talking about that kind of stuff, now maybe if they're older and they're a little more open, they might be, they might still had to work hard for their money, even though their family had money. They still have to work for it. They might be a little more open. But more importantly, when you're talking about banking institutions that have been around for decades, you're talking about people that have been at that bank for decades. You're talking about people that helped build that fiat currency from the Great Depression. When you start having that type of sweat and tears you put into something, they're not just going to jump ship and go on something that they don't trust in the first place. They don't trust computers anyway. So they're definitely not going to have a wallet to put their money in so some snotty-nosed Z generation can come in there and hack it. I mean, I'm not saying that they're saying that, you know what I mean? I'm putting it in a very bold and blatant way of saying it. But that's sort of the level of thinking and the difference in thinking. Because you have a younger person who's like, listen, I don't have to cash at me. Like, they're like, what? I don't put it on my, Apple Pay is everywhere. That's all they do, Apple Pay. That's all they do is look at their computer. The check. Do people still write checks? What? Don't pay me with the check. I don't have time for that. You don't have a credit card. You don't have nothing. You can pay me instantly. That's, they are looking at digital currency as a convenience. Like, hey, yes. When are we going to switch all the way over? I'm tired. But yeah, it's what you're competing with, and it's definitely not somebody that doesn't have a greater voice than you have at this particular time. So it's going to take some time if you can convince them to just go straight digital. It's just not enough trust there for too many of the generations. And that would include some of the older Xers. Some of y'all are serious about that. Some of you Apple IIe people. You're not, no, you're still not thinking, in that term. And I would say maybe not so much the younger millennials, but some of the older millennials are kind of on that cusp where they're like, I'm kind of in the middle, I go either way, but I prefer, but that's kind of what we're facing here when we say we have that sort of limited acceptance that has been there for like quite a bit of time. You think that somebody's saying that they think that that's why it's not widely used all the time. It's also kind of new. So you have to think about, I think that, when I say snotty nose, obviously I'm not poking fun at Gen Z, although many people do. I'm just saying that they don't know anything else. So it's not a leap for them. They're not leaping into anything. It just is. It's already there. It's just something that's more convenient for that generation. So and I'm speaking future-wise because a lot of Z generation is still young. So as they start growing and getting older, we start going into the future. Some of the boomers start dying off some more. Some of the Xers going, millennials getting older. They're going to be not feeling like that's a stretch. But they are not that way currently. Currently, they're still young. So, and the older generation is the one that's going to dominate anything that has to do with finances, by and large, because they're the ones that are putting the money where their mouth is. So, they've earned it, over the years. So, you have to sort of respect that in one aspect, but also, how do you tell them the benefits of something that's new? And then how do they tell you that that's not a benefit to them? So it kind of becomes a clash where you keep the limited access, and we have the limited acceptance at this time. So it's going to have to be watched a little more. I don't see us switching, without force by the government, to digital currencies straight away like that. Just that's it. We're dropping, is digital all the way. I just don't see that actually happening. You hope so. Well, you're probably not alone in that. People do think that, but it is currently in limited acceptance. And then here's a big thing for me: irreversibility. Okay, on the digital currency network, transactions are irreversible. This means, for those of you that haven't caught on yet, that once that transaction has been completed, it cannot be undone. All right, in circumstances where there's a mistake or fraud, how do you regulate fraud? That is the biggest part, has taken place. This may be a disadvantage. This is also a tremendous disadvantage for those new to digital currency space, as there is a substantial learning curve. Because there is no central oversight area for the digital currencies, new users can simply go through the local branch to receive help for many digital currencies. If you don't have that, you just switch a bunch of boomers or switch a bunch of older Xers and some of the older millennials over there. Well, maybe not millennials so much, but the older Z boomer people. And they start pushing stuff. What is the likelihood that they're probably going to send money that they're not trying to send? And then you don't have an institution that's going to be able to come in there if you have digitized the bank pretty much. You don't have tellers and stuff. Who's going to reverse those? You would have just, they're going to be in there. I'm trying to pay my, whatever, and boom, digital. And they send, 45,000 instead of $450. And, they get to keep that money as the system currently is. So I feel like especially if you haven't bought cryptocurrency or something, if you haven't put yourself and made yourself familiar with this space, and you're trying it new, and there's nobody to explain it to you, you're probably going to do that a couple times. You're going to be like, push, oh, no, damn it. Like, I just sit, and, that, and it's not reversible. We need to work on that. If we're going to build an infrastructure for that, clearly, we have to put safeguards in place. And that is going to mess with the timeline. It will not be instant anymore because we have to put safeguards in place. That is why we go back to the original method of the bank taking several days. So we almost have to think about, is there a possibility that we do away with one, type of currency only to have to regulate it as if we did the first one? People get mad at that. But regulations start to make sense as people start making mistakes, right? As people start learning systems, as people with bad intentions start entering the playing field. All of a sudden, we get what you are trying to avoid by buying cryptocurrency, which is a regulation. That's just my opinion. I feel like we're going to go back where we started. We might as well keep both, because ultimately, there's going to be a lot of, oh, no, shoot, I sent. And people are going to be like, I'm not giving that back. You should have paid attention to how that process works before you sent the money, type of thing. Because people are always crooked. You always get shady people. So you're going to send that somewhere. Oops. I meant to send $450. You know the bill is $450. I didn't mean to send you $45,000. And then they're like, well, it's crypto. We can't reverse it. Sorry, it's digital. Can't reverse it. Sorry. It's digital currency. Sorry about that. You know what I mean? You need to pay attention before you actually send it. And then that's going to create problems. And we're going to have to build laws to keep that from happening. Even if you don't make it so that it's reversible, you make it so the person can recoup and that there's penalties for people that keep it. Interesting. Is it interesting? This is not an interesting subject to many people that aren't following finances. Pros, faster transaction times, no physical manufacturing required, lower transaction cost, make it easier to implement monetary and fiscal policies, greater privacy than other forms of currency. Some of the major cons can be difficult to store and use, prone to hacking, volatile prices that result in lost value, may not allow for irrevocability of transaction, and then limited acceptability. And I think those last two being the most negative. No, I'm lying. It's all of them. It's all of them. Where do I see the future of the future? The future of digital currencies? I mean, cryptocurrency like, Bitcoin have exploded in value. But they are not largely used for speculation or they buy other like speculative assets. They don't really buy, like solid stuff, if that makes sense. You won't buy into gold using crypto or digital money type of thing. This is not to say that that won't happen in the future. It's just saying it's not happening now. I think many of the companies have tried to reduce the volatility. They introduce like stable coins and stuff like that, but I don't think that takes it down too much. Um, they do use these deposits on a more speculative investment. So I think that's already dangerous in a sense. Just is. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's what you're buying is already up for question, and what you're purchasing it with is also up for question. Like dirty money, right? If you're using dirty money, you're usually using that to buy something dirty. On an average. Okay, this is not always true. Sometimes people don't know what they're purchasing, but by and large. I know I didn't. Somebody said I didn't know you had a live. Yeah, I didn't announce it. Get the notification. That as a person, click the notification bell so that you know when these lives come in and when we're having them. So some examples of digital currencies. Okay, some major central banks around the world have looked into issuing their digital currencies. Some of the larger, more notable examples would be like China, Sweden, European Central Bank, um, the Bank of England, Canada. These types of places that are more, maybe even a little more advanced than we are as far as acceptance of things, all things digital, basically. Um, So, I mean, CBDCs, they're more unlikely, I guess, to use the speculative investments. They will be pegged to value and underlying currencies. So, it's possible to invest in those currencies, through another market, but more than likely, no. Um, so, just to any questions? So, how do I know? I've always been very interested in this space. I do read a lot about this space. I am an investor in this space at one point. I just want to, I familiarize myself with stuff, even if I don't necessarily go hard into it or go big on it. I just like to know how that process works, what's involved in that, where we are with regards to that. All of that is part of financial literacy. And financial literacy isn't just being literate in the parts you need, it's being literate in the whole scope of everything. You start from the entire economy and work your way down. Not trickle down, just work your way down and learning. This is how I learned. I do have a degree in business with an emphasis in managerial finance. So they started with just teaching us what the stock market was. I mean, you might have known or not known, but they broke that down like you were a 5-year-old, and they took us through, all the other avenues, and then they took us, and then you learned that it's all relative. So even to your own finances, as it gets down to, it's all relative. So you have to, if you're smart, at least understand new stuff. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to participate in it. But you should at least know how to speak about it intelligently. You at least know why you're not in it. Other than people don't like change. I mean, sometimes people will resist something just because it's change. And I try not to do that. I think that that keeps you elderly, no matter what age you are. And elderly meaning sort of just stuck in the old times. I'm using the word elderly in that way. It's not a real definition. I made that up. But I feel like that sticks you there. And you sort of like the old things and you stay with what's comfortable in you. But you have to grow. And that doesn't matter what age you are. You still have to grow. So in order to do that, you sort of have to be in the know of what's happening. You might not even understand it completely. But what you want to have is enough of a hold on it. So if you change your mind and decide to go that route, or if somebody changes it for you and we're forced to go into that area, that you're, you know where you're going and how your place and how you want to participate in what's going on. And whether you like it or not, as I said on the onset of this video, digital currency is here. And it does not look like it's going anywhere anytime faster. As a matter of fact, they're trying to keep it around longer. So you have a group of people trying to keep it, at least as an option, if nothing else. So in real life, you have to respond to that. You have to, you have to be within the confines of that as a reality. I think it's hard for people to do. So I thought if I just kind of tell people what it is, how it works, that digital currency doesn't just mean cryptocurrency, which is like the common, you think digital cryptocurrency. You also, a lot of times I hear people when I'm just out talking, someone will use those words interchangeably. And they're really not interchangeable. They are along the same lines, but one is a version of something of what it actually is, which is digital currency, right? To include cryptocurrency. But that's kind of what it is. Thank you. Blockchain. That's what I was trying to remember. I don't know why I didn't remember that it was a blockchain. Thank you. So somebody clued me into the blockchain is the word I was looking for when I was saying when a lot of people invest into the software, they invest into the back part of it, and some of them invest into the blockchain. And that's what I was trying to say. I don't know what I was saying, but I was using another term, but the term is blockchain. So thank you, Fab44, for telling me that it was a blockchain because I couldn't remember it. But yeah, you know, I think it stands to reason that it would make sense that you would invest in the blockchain even more than you would in the actual cryptocurrency or currency that you're, that's provided on there. All right. Some you don't want to use digital currency, like ever. Have you ever? I mean, do you use an Apple phone? I mean, an Apple Pay. It's sort of starting the process. It's starting to teach you how to use digital currency. I mean, it's not digital in the sense, but it's kind of how it'll look if you just start using digital currency. It'll be online, so it'll be on your phone, and it'll just be no actual physical. You won't get paper. You won't go to the bank and pull out paper. But the process in and of itself on how to use it and how to transfer it goes. Everything is online. Everything's digital. So it's thus the term digital currency. But in a weird sort of a way, you may be, you might have to go into that, because it'll be what everybody's using. It's just like a lot of people use Apple Pay now rather than paying cash. What is Cash App? It's an app that dispenses cash to and fro. It's like a Western Union for those of you without the heavy bill. I don't know. He's probably older. Somebody's like, how you not know that? Don't make fun of people. This is why my comments are turned this way, so you don't start going in on people. That person is okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn these things and to ask any question you want to ask so that you don't have to not know it. So if he didn't know what a Cash App was, it's because he doesn't use it. You probably Cash Apping all day, but that's, yeah, you can ask that. So it's not, that's a very good question, and that's response is not very, it's understandable, but you haven't put a lot of thought into that when you ask a question like that, because it's, a lot of people don't know stuff that they don't use. So, will generational wealth be digital? Well, I guess if we go digital currency, I'm pretty sure everything's digital currency. If we go that route and we get rid of the actual physical, paper currency. Oh, thank you. Somebody said they like the fact that I make sure people can ask anything. It's really the point of it. Like, I don't want, I want people to, I don't care if somebody asked me once what a ticker is. And I was like, hey, that thing that scrolls across the, when you're looking at the, the Wall Street, and, I explained it to him. That's what it is. It's called a ticker. I think that was okay to ask that question. And then everybody sort of went in, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. Let them ask that question if they have that question. I'm not, from the simple to the more complicated. I like to answer them. Yeah, everybody's saying they don't see me. Yeah, you can't. You don't have to see me every time. I mean, I get the point across. I'm doing a live, so yeah, I'm getting the information to you. Sources. Basic about cryptocurrency. European Central Bank virtual currency schemes. Bank of England, central bank digital currencies, opportunity challenges, and design. Those are my sources. Let's just bottom line it. Digital currencies are assets that are only used for electronic transactions. They do not have any physical form. That is what makes them digital, although they can be exchanged for regular money and other assets. Not so much so because they're not always accepted, but although the most popular digital currency is cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, many national governments are considering issuing their own centralized digital currencies. So let's keep that in mind, that now we're moving forward and that digital currency does not necessarily mean crypto. There was a time when it might have only meant that, but no more. Okay, and I don't know if it ever was just that time, but I'm just saying. Yes, so somebody remembered my Tesla comment. Yes. So I did say, and I couldn't find the video because I went back to look at it, and sometimes I have videos on some of my other channels that were basically taken by stalkers, but where I talked about don't buy Tesla. Tesla, it doesn't have a good future. It relies too much on perfection. It's not going to be perfect all the time. We don't know the volatility of Elon Musk. He may be good, he may be bad. We don't know. But just quit thinking that's, put that in there if you want to put it in there, but quit putting bulks in there like that. And as we all know, we are where we are today with that stock. I think so. I somebody asked me how people don't think you know. I really addressed this in one of my videos, which you actually can see on here, and I talked about the you can't judge a book by its cover. There was a time when all of these sort of gurus of the internet were like giving investment advice. So what they were doing was investing in stuff and then talking about it. And then they sort of advanced it into making actual predictions. And many of them had a real estate license, but no degree in business, nothing to do with actual economics. And so they got in trouble because they all got sued. Okay. This is a little bit around the time where they were taking down FTX. And I said, they're using as the example the one young man that came on and talked about GameStop, and he had the suit on, and I can't remember his name right at this particular moment. But he went all in and he was giving this prediction about GameStop. Well, it turned out it only saved because he gave this advice, and then ultimately people lost their money. So you can't judge a book by its cover. They don't think that, maybe they think I'm too young. Maybe they think I'm too minority. Maybe they think I'm too female. Maybe they think they never heard of me. Maybe they think, whatever they're judging me by when they look, you doesn't, so I have to say my credentials so people know that they're there. And I have done a lot of different jobs. Somebody said, just to answer that question, I've done a lot. I retired early originally. I think I was like 34, 35. And then I went into another field. And then I retired again and went into another field. So you'll see that I have in the interim different experiences. I was never afraid to try new stuff or to transfer my skills to something else. And so you'll hear me say, when I did this, and you'll be like, dang, how many things can you do? And it's not that I can do so many things. It's just that once I go into something, I really genuinely learn it. What you will note is why I have so many positive experiences and so many just experiences overall is because I'm what is called a peak learner. And a peak learner is a person that likes to learn. So when there's something new, like I'll jump on AI real fast and start learning it. Digital currency, I'll jump on digital currency, start reading it real well. When I went to school the first time for college, I went to be a psychiatrist. So you'll hear me talk a lot about counseling and these types of disorders. But I didn't. I felt there was more value in business, so I finished my degree in business. And then I thought finance is part of it, managerial finance. So I added that, you know what I'm saying? So you'll see layers of stuff without me telling you my entire life story, which you probably wouldn't want to hear anyway. But I tell you as I'm explaining different things, where I'm getting it from, because I want you to value what I'm saying enough to really take take in the information that I'm giving you. And I do that, more importantly, because we get to all learn something new. So we all get information that we didn't have before. One of my biggest assets, you'll hear me say it all day long, every day, is that I was lucky enough to have a mentor. And I really had, over in my lifetime, maybe three. And starting with one of my first, which you'll hear me talk about my mentor, AC Lyles. So you hear me talk about him. You'll hear me talk about, I had a friend named Marilyn Johnson, and then you'll hear me talk a little bit more about my dad, my mom, or some of the other people down the road that helped to shape my business decisions. So as I was going along and I started on one road, it was like, no, I can't tell you what to do, but the best, decision for you to do now is to go here, because life started changing. And as you grow and get into things, and what happens is people stay stuck where they are. And I learned that lesson when I saw everybody get older that I was looking at when I was young. And I saw them be the same age, but all have different outcomes. And I was fortunate enough to be young enough to be able to learn that lesson early on. You have to accept change. It's a part of life. And so I was never afraid when changes came to change myself. And that's what you're starting to see when you hear me say, yes, I did this and I did this and I did these things. I wasn't jumping around doing them. I was literally finishing stuff. I was literally executing stuff. I was literally making sure I completed the process. And that's how I was able to learn. So even if I left and did something else, I still stuck to what I was doing. So even though AI is new and digital currency is new, and my learning of government came with me getting involved in government and doing jobs in government and running, working in campaigns in government, because I needed to know that aspect of everything because it fit within the confines of the economic structure. Everything that I talk about at the end of the day fits in the confines of what the economy would be doing. So that includes how that economy affects the laws we have, how, this court case applied the policies and laws that we had for, this way. So you'll see me sort of taking the information that I learned, and the best thing that they taught me was how to apply it. And so you'll see application. And that's kind of why you hear me say some of the things. Some people are like, oh, you're just being conceited. And it's like, no, not at all. What I'm doing is letting you know how I got this information, and that I'm not just talking about finance because I invest and I just want you to know what my investments are, or I'm getting paid to well, I guess to help people with finances, but to let you know how I know the structure of a business and to tell you these things. And I'm learning every day, so I will continue to do information and news. And that's part of information, and then news is what it is. News is where we're at the time. So interesting question. Thank you. I just had to get all that out because people ask me this stuff. Someone always asks me this. Somebody's asking me, why is my Twitter so different than my YouTube channel? They do different things. They're actually different platforms. So they do different things, different platforms. So you will always see me on both because I think that they both serve two different purposes. That's all. But if you really want a lot of the information and news, that's what this is for. And then, some just seeing me do random stuff, on the Twitter accounts. I'm sorry, on the TikTok accounts is kind of how that grew. I think people. Oh, so yes, I was going to say that people, I think, maybe like that side because it's less strict. I probably seem extremely formal when I'm speaking on this, this particular channel, and I'm making sure my facts are correct. And I say fact check me, and I say these things, but I'm not like that all the time. Obviously, it's more than. Well, I mean, if you look at it in the reverse, if you look at my Twitter first and then my YouTube, you probably think I'm a completely different person than I actually am. And then you look at my YouTube and that's a whole nother person. So they're all the same person. They're just highlighted on social media platforms. So I already have those ways about me, but they're just like on level 15. Like I say in every video when people ask me this question, it's like they're really amplified. Like you would probably notice it if you just were talking to me normally, but it wouldn't be as highlighted. Like it's pretty extra. So I don't like one more than the other. I do enjoy them both. I do them because I enjoy them both. So you want to be in management? What do you mean, like for like your job? Are you not in management now, and you want to get there? So there's a combination. If you ask in my advice for that, there's a combination for that. It's not just knowing your job. You have to be exceptional at it, depending upon who you are, what you look like, what they think you're like. And then also, you have to be given a chance because sometimes if people judge you immediately, it may not be the judgment you necessarily need to move you forward. So, yeah, I mean, I talked about that in another video on another channel. But yeah, it's Judge, I mean, sometimes people will prevent you. You know, I did an episode of, not an episode, I did a video on Karens. I will redo that because I'm not even sure if it's still visible, but, and I talked about that process on making sure you don't. Also, just in jobs nowadays, I have learned that people will gang up on you, especially if you're doing really well. It's like Survivor, the show. You know, we're all ganging up to try to get the strongest candidate out, especially if promotions are coming up or they know that, you know, they want a certain person that's more easy to manipulate in there, or they want somebody that they think's going to follow along with what they're doing. And so if you feel that, like you're feeling like, dang, how come I'm not getting promoted? It may not be you. It might not even be your work. It may be that you're just getting iced out low key by the rest of the staff. I don't know why people do that. I've never participated in stuff like that. I think it should be fair. I mean, fair in the sense that I think it should be. It should be a good thing that you're doing good work, but in real life, that's not true. It's not always the hardest worker that gets the promotion. Sometimes it's the one that fits in with whatever that company's doing. And you don't have to be the smartest person. You don't have to be the best person. Sometimes they cover your mistakes to help get you there. But you're going to do the most favors. And sometimes that's just what it is. I don't know what you look like, but if you look a certain way, that might be a problem for you also. Tall, good, probably good looking. You're tall. A tall guy, tall, dark, and handsome. Yeah, that's probably a problem. Generally, guys support each other, but you might be a little intimidating for some of those guys in that office. Also, if you're very aggressive, that might be intimidating for some of the other men. Yes, I did say that earlier. I am going to do a follow up to the security, to that, to the video where I did the, you know, talking about the sex extortion. It's a very serious video. I'm glad you guys took it as well as you took it. Um, yeah, what do you mean more detail about AI? Oh, like I did with this, with the digital currency. Yeah, I can do that. I can do a video about that. Did not complete the Diddy trial. What do you mean it didn't complete? I did not. Oh, you mean I didn't do a wrap up on that? It's a little late now. I might be able to wrap it up as it applies to what happened after. I'll do like a follow up. I don't think it's too late to do a wrap up. The verdict's already been done. I believe he went to sentencing at some point. So yeah. If somebody asked me, did I think Diddy would take revenge? I don't think he'll be happy if he gets out. I think he will remember who said what and who stood by his side, as anybody would if you're going through something tragic. And I guess the thinking at that time when you're going through that rough time is if they're really your friends, they might scold you for what you did, but they'll still support you through it. So I think it might be that kind of thinking. I don't know what's in the man's head, but I mean, I feel like if somebody was going through that, especially if you know, all your consequences caught up to you, you still feel like you still want somebody there for you. You know what I mean? Like, you know you're wrong, but, you know, that would be my thinking on the shirt. Sure. Yeah, so I didn't care how long this particular live was because I know there was a lot of questions I wasn't answering. I just didn't have the time. But I wanted to go in and do that. But we were talking about, for those of you that just came in or you guys are coming in asking questions, we didn't start out Q&A. We started out talking about digital currency. So I went ahead and broke that down. And this video is going to be what it is because it's just going to be a live, just straight up live. And if you have the time to go over it, you know, take the time to go over it. But we were talking about that. Why didn't I become an economist? I didn't want to. I do love the economy and I like talking about finances and stuff, but it's not like it wasn't my ideal job at the time when I was going through college and stuff. My voice is cool. Oh, I did work in radio. Yes, I did. I worked for a Paris radio station. I also did snippets for radio stations. Wow, this got personal real fast. Does anybody have a question about digital currency? Whole lot of personals. Yeah, so I was campaigning. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I work in campaigns. I do like that. Nope, because I stay neutral. I report what the facts are. I think that's the best kind of reporting. You just really, I think that that's why I have developed a good following. And it's because they know that I'm not going to go in there and start ranting and raving about my opinion. What I am going to do is report what's actually happening and then let you decide. Because I don't think my job is to tell you what to think. I think my job is to report what's actually happening, make sure my sources are verified, and then have you decide. So I don't need my opinion in there in my view of reporting. Somebody always asks me about acting. You must have came from the other channel. Did you? Let me know if you actually came from my other channel because you're asking me about being an actress, and I did answer that. And I will briefly answer it since it's a question and it covers, information and news. But we are digressing too far, so try to stick to stuff that has to do with finances. But I always said, and I will continue to say that you have to wait until your look is needed. Acting is physical as much as it is talent. So, I mean, unless you have a striking audience that you just strike out of nowhere and everybody knows that audience is coming with you, you will just be on the outskirts. I mean, I think it's a deficit to look like somebody because that person's already there. You don't want to look like Halle Berry. She's already Halle Berry, so you don't need to look like that. You don't want to look like, or be as funny as Kevin Hart because Kevin Hart is Kevin Hart. So I always find, sometimes when people want to be an actor or actress, they really want attention, and it's a job. So you're going in there with the wrong mindset off the rip. You're going in there not thinking it's work, and like somehow, you're going to get along on, you know, you know, desperation or something. Because people come in there not knowing how to cold read. People come in there, like trying to play a character that's against their type, like way against their type. Sometimes the person listening to you has a something in mind. Most of the time they do. And if you just don't fit that, like they'll work around you if you fit the majority of what they're looking for, but not the other way around. They're not going to recreate stuff unless for some reason they can see that an audience will come with you. So people are like, oh, so and so was discovered around the corner. And it's like they were discovered around the corner, but they went to them. They didn't go the other way. They didn't go to them and beg for a job, basically. You see what I'm saying? So it's like when you go in there and you're all desperate and I'm better than everybody. Please be realistic in your expectations. I know what video you were looking at. Yeah, it's on the other channel, but yeah, it's not here anymore. But yes, that was my opinion at that time, and it actually still stands for today. Open, ask me questions. I don't care what the question is. I wanted to keep this live open at the end for any questions, whether they're about digital currency or just we are evolving. Let me just do a preface. We are evolving into the second part of this video to talk about Q&A. So we're going to answer questions about videos that I previously had. Okay, everybody happy about that. Questions about stuff that I previously had any of my videos, and then I will try to answer the questions for that. First part of this video, if you were interested in digital currency, we were talking about digital currency. This is going to cover all of finance, all, whatever I covered on my whatever videos I have, basically. Okay, now that I've said that, since we digressed and went into another direction, ask away. So, yes, I do always cite a source because I usually have a source to cite. If I'm just saying something, then I'll just say I said it. But if usually, when it's especially a large amount of information, I cite the source so that you know I got it from somewhere. So that I'm not just making stuff up off the top of my head, or I don't just have a wealth of knowledge that came randomly from, from nowhere. It came from somewhere, so I always cite the source. I don't know if I'm changing things. I feel like I pretty much do what everybody else does, but just, people just that want to follow me, follow me. I feel like we all do the same thing. They just, if you want to follow me, you follow me. That's kind of how that is. Oh, what video are you talking about? Let me think back. What? Queen. Oh, you're talking about Queen, the movie? Okay, so I did do a video about that. I did do that video, and I did talk about Karen. You want me to explain the Karen process? So I'm going to make it brief. But the Karen process was literally, to me, showing a transition in how racism was displayed. At the time I made that video and I realized that this Karen was a process, I started focusing more on the process and as it applies to a Chad or a Karen, but they weren't always necessarily one race. Even though a Karen, by definition, started this process. The original story being a mother, just breaking it down, a mother with a mixed child, that the woman that was Karen, I think her name was Catherine, ultimately ended up disliking the mother and taking it on the child. Now, at the time, we didn't know that. When this story broke, it broke because this lady was lying to this little girl about how there's some law that says that she can't sell water outside of her house. And she was really harassing this little girl. I think she was about 9 at the time. Just making her just miserable, as if she was entitled to tell her. One of the big factors with that Karen is that they lie. They don't tell the truth. They're doing something they know is wrong, so they seek to hide it. And that was one of the lies she told her, that she couldn't sell any water out here. And she was harassing it. It's this little black girl. She called her "you people," I think, at one point. I don't remember the video too well, but I remember the story. Now, as it turns out, later down the road, we found out that the Karen had a problem with the mother and that the child was actually a mixed child. And nobody knew that part of the story. So as it spiraled, you start to see the behavior more and more and more. It literally happened at least a week later with another lady that saw 2 black men in at a park, and I think it was around time where people were barbecuing, and they told them, this Karen went over to these black guys and told them to put that fire out, that they could not use that grill. And they were like, why? And she was like, because you can't. And she made up some lie at the time that everybody knew was a lie, because it's a park with a grill. Everybody can use that. So it was another story, and then it became another and another. And this process spread over into people's work, as many times it does. And so when I said, this is how they do this is how Karens work, it was me explaining that process. And that's what the beginning of that video, because somebody had already asked that question. And they said something about them being entitled. And I'm like, it's not entitlement. That's too simple. What they're doing is creating a process to vent their racist beliefs or judgmental beliefs to get you away from something, to take something from you. And that's way more serious than you just being entitled. There's a lot of entitled people that don't do that. So that's where that came in. And the process. Okay, so the process was, I used as an example, they use actual policy. So I used as an example in the video, that everybody has this policy that you're not supposed to come in, you know, late, you know, 15, you have 15 minutes or 30 minutes late, which is using that as an example. And everybody overrides it. Nobody says anything. And you in particular are the Karen's target. So the Karen will go into your boss. She might purposely come late that day. She might come maybe 5 minutes late, just enough to not get in trouble. And she'll go in to the boss and say, "Oh, so I wanted to know, what happens if I'm late and I just happen to be late today. And, I noticed when like Stacy's like 30 minutes late all the time. And he'd probably be, what? Well, I mean, I'm just saying that I notice she's late like every day, like almost 30 minutes. So now you might have been only 15 or 10 minutes late. You might have even only been the same 5 she was late. But she's not going to say that. She has to make that more dramatic because it springs an action. Maybe she wants you gone. I also explained that they put themselves in a position of power. And that was a big misunderstanding because when I got a lot of notes about that, people were saying, "Are you saying they're all managers and executives?" I said they put themselves in a position of power. Doesn't mean that they're paid to be in there. It could easily mean that they get on the HOA board. It could easily mean that they start volunteering for a committee at your work. But they have to do that so they can make a decision and that they can be trusted to make a decision. So that when they lie on you, it looks legit. So that's what I was saying. That was what that sort of process was like. There's probably more to it, but we don't need to go into too much detail because this video really wasn't about that. But that's to answer your question for that. So yeah, I did make a video about working in like the top jobs at the time, and astrology was on there. You can fact check me. I'm not even kidding. It was one of the high paying jobs. Was astrology. I lied to you not. I tell you, I fact checked these videos. I lied to you not on these videos. That was part of it. I kid you not. Astrology was definitely in the top 5. I think it was unusual jobs that make a lot of money, and astrology was in there. Don't ask. I mean, I have no idea why that was a part of the whole thing. It just was. All right, so I feel like, oh, my financial mindset. No, I think it was like it was a video about the mindsets that keep you broke. Is that's the one you're talking about? What do I feel like is the most important to know? I feel like it's the most important to know that you have to budget. I mean, when all is said and done at the end of the day, you have to budget your entire amount of money, not just your bills. Some people budget their bills and they go ham on everything else. Like they feel like that's left over, so they're just going to go crazy. And that proves to keep you broke. It really will not benefit you to do that. You have to take your entire amount of money, ideally for the whole month, and you budget it as a whole. Also, when you go into a job and you're asking for pay and stuff like that, you have to keep in mind what your lifestyle would be like above your bills. So that means you have to figure out how much your bills cost in a year. So you know how much more to ask for to keep you past just living paycheck to paycheck. So that's a financial tip that I really think that you should budget annually. And if you're in a job that once you figure that out and you realize, yeah, it covers my bills, but I don't have much left over, like $20 left over, at the end of each month or something like that, then you use transferable skills to move yourself into another job that will pay you that overage you need. So you can survive on this much, but what will take you over that? And so you move yourself to that place. That would be my way of saying that your mindset needed to change, because most of the time people just find a job and work their finances around the job. So you're making, I don't know, $10 an hour or something. I'm probably making that up, but you're making $10 an hour, and then you start adjusting your finances to the $10. instead of saying, if I pay all my bills with this $10, this is how much I'm not having. And then finding a job to match what you're not having that takes you over. Don't do it the other way. And I say that because out of experience, just when I was younger, I got a job and I adjusted around the job. But I found it's more beneficial to do it the other way. If you adjust your job around what you're needing, it just makes more sense that way. Because if you annually figure out what your bills are, you take away the amount of money that you getting paid. So you take away the $10 an hour, what it would be for the year. And what you have left over as a deficit is what you need to find that amount of money, a job that pays you that amount of money to take you over that. Now, if you're already in a deficit, you're going to need more than that. So if $10 is making it, you're probably going to need not $5 to make 15, but another 10 to make 20. Does it make sense? And it's just to keep you from living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, no one wants to do that. But people do that every time I've found that you build your life around your job. Even if your job pays you well and you build your life around your job and you don't have anything else to do with that, if your job somehow has to pay you less for some reason, or it's like or the economy changes and you have to be laid off for a period of time, then you need to know how to adjust to that. I speak about generations a lot. I speak about the generations a lot because they literally think differently. They have very vastly different experiences, and each generation thinks differently. For example, half the things that a Z generation would do to boomers are outrageously disrespectful. Like, they can't even fathom what your parents were doing. Like, sometimes some of the things the Xers do are just too regimented for a millennial. They're just like, what the heck? You don't have to be super employee, just do just enough, chill out. And it's like, that's how the generations work. So to me, when I explain them, it's to give everybody an understanding of how each generation was thinking. Because, boomers were very regimented. They were family oriented. They made sure that they were respectful. They had good etiquette. They made sure they were dressed appropriately. So you can imagine how disrespectful a Z is. I mean, you're like looking at them and they're talking smack to their parents and not listening to elder people because they think they know everything and they're on the internet all the time, so they sound crazy. And then you can see that an Xer, which you were self-sufficient, you were a latchkey kid, you were, drinking out the water hose, you were out all day, you had to survive it. When you got in a fight, it was in person. When you bullied people, it was in person. So you put up with a lot. So you have a tendency to be more regimented. You're like, hey, I'm here to work. I'm not here to make friends. If we're not friends, and that's cool. What else we have to do? You tend to do things early, like, okay, so what I need to do is, I need to make sure this is done and this is done, and that's what you're there to work. Like, that's your job. Your job is to do your job. And then a millennial's a little more kicked back. They're just like, you know what? I would rather work remote. I don't need a, boss hanging on. I mean, I don't need to do stuff early. I don't need to do anything extra. I'm going to do my job, go the heck home. That's it. Maybe make some friends along the way, because we like to hang out all the time. It's kind of like, so I just kind of have... So when I mention finances, I have to say it usually in a generational terms because I'm breaking down the different thought processes. Gen X cannot imagine that you do not budget. Like, what the heck is happening with the situation? Like, how do you know what you have? And like a millennial will be like, yeah, I budget, but I like have a little bit of an open space there so that I can, do a little investing maybe. And then like a boomer is just like hospital corners. They're like, they have the whole portfolio. They invest. They make sure they put it in little piles. They got the 30, 20, 10. They got, you know what I mean? So, and a Zer is like, invest for what? Like, I'm not even old enough right now to be investing. I don't need to invest. I'm too young. But if you ask a Gen, Z or a Gen X was like, I'm investing when I got out of college, at 19. Like, I graduated early. It's kind of so we tend to fight amongst ourselves with these different generations. So you hear me mentioning them all the time because they're just different ways of thinking. I mean, it's where they stemmed from and what was happening at the time when they were born. And so I do find it interesting. I find it interesting that even the millennials who had the more relaxed attitude still look at Gen Z like, seriously? like, like I get it, you're young. We were all young once, but this is ridiculous. You can't keep using it as an excuse for doing nothing. It's kind of like you hear like the conversations going down like that, and it's to me it's funny because I'm like, yeah, they don't know. Like they only know they can't imagine life, without a cell phone. Like, put it down. What do you mean? I never, once I got it, I kept it, and that was it. So it's just these types of thinking. Do I think one is better than the other? No, I think they all serve their purpose. I, I just no. I think Z generation's very disrespectful a lot of times, and I'm not even like of the boomer age or anything like that. But I agree with boomers a lot of times when they say stuff like that because I'm like, you can't. It depends on how you were raised too. I mean, everybody's different, but I mean, some of the stuff that they do, you just go, that's just like, why are you talking to your boss like that? Like, stop. Like, or this is you have to be to work on time or something like that, or please get stuff done early every now and then, or these types of things. So I just see the differences. They're amusing to me. If I was a comedian, I'd probably crack a bunch of jokes about the differences in the generations because they're very funny. There is actually someone that I would highlight a little bit that does this on his channel where he breaks down, like, I think they all work remotely, they all have a job and they are all on the same job, but you get to see how they react differently to these emails that are coming in. And he had like, Z was like, yeah, I'm not answering that. Like, and Lynn was like, oh my God, you need to write these emails. And Z was like, oh, okay, you need it early. Okay, let me get that done. I mean, X was like, let me get that done. Boomer was the one handing out all the assignments. It was really funny. I mean, if I was a comedian, I'd crack jokes about that. So I think it's funny. All right. Anything else? We got more we need to do, say, talk about. The Yes, I don't keep all of my lives up. First of all, they're too long most of the time. So it's really time wise. If you're not there right away, most of the time, people do go back sometimes, but like this one, for example, it's probably like it's a lot to watch. You might even watch the first half and cut the second half off. So I generally give you a chance to see it, and then I just kind of just close it off because I think lives should be live. I don't think lives should be live and then you look back at it. I started, what about court trials? The in depth? No, I didn't. That was Court TV that started that. I did not start that. Court TV was the one that went all in on the trials, that made them public. And but to the best of my knowledge, if there was somebody before that, I think that they did show them on the news. But I don't think they did like an entire court day. I believe that was Court TV, and I think later came channels like Law and Crime and those types of things, and people on the internet covering them. But I think the first trial I saw in whole was on Court TV, without being in the courtroom, like literally just watching it on TV. So I feel like I tend to credit them for maybe, if they weren't the first, they were the ones that made you recognize what was going on in the courtroom. And they showed it, and then they gave you those eyes. Now, let's say OJ might have been the original, where you actually saw the whole legal process play out live. But as a actual doing it as a job, I would say Court TV probably was first with that. Well, because I think you explain. Someone said, I think you explain things differently when you've been in the legal field. you have a mind that breaks things down a certain way. So what I wanted to do when I give my analysis was to sort of break it down so that every day people could follow what was happening on any day that they ended up watching the trial, because a lot of times people work, so they don't have all day to sit around and watch court trials, or to go sit in a courtroom all day, or to talk to lawyers and stuff. So I wanted to break it down so that whenever you jumped into this trial, you could follow it. Whatever you were reading, you could follow it. So I did it that way, but just because it just made more sense to me, just to do it that way. I don't know, I might have pioneered that part of it and without intent, if you're looking at me that way, but I just did it because it was a necessity, because I felt like most people work. So I didn't have, and if I just give you a bunch of legal jargon, most people can't follow it. So you're looking at these trials. Sometimes when you work in a field, or you've been in a field, or you're an attorney, or you were a prosecutor, or you've done all these things, you explain it the way that you understand it. But I kept in mind that people might have had an interest in it if they knew what they were talking about. And they don't. So I started breaking stuff down, to where it made sense if I was just talking to you in something that you were interested in, but maybe didn't have as much of a background in. So I try to keep that in mind when I explain things. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I do have a sense of humor. You do see it on TikTok. Yeah, I have a couple videos that I love to laugh, probably more than people realize, but I just find certain things funny. I don't know what that is. You'll see me just remark on some crazy stuff every now and then. I'll like crack a joke on something, but to me, I find the stuff funny. Like I find everyday things because I have that type of sense of humor funny. So you'll hear me remark on it sometimes. I'll do a video or something that just reminds me of something that just cracked me up at one point, or that I overheard, or something that I just find everyday stuff funny. Like you'll hear me crack up all the time when people talk about the generations, for example. When I was using that particular example, it just cracked me up. I mean, I fell out all day because it was sort of like it was funny to me that does happen like that sometimes. And that would be sort of the case if they all had the same job and they were all working it without being in the same room with each other and being influenced by the other people's reactions. So, well, yeah, because I mean, I had an interest in law, obviously. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, it's why I went to law school, say I liked law. The study of it, not necessarily the practice. You'll find a lot of people that actually go into law don't actually practice because they, for one reason or another, don't want to be chained to that courtroom. Because you're going to have to be there whether you want to be or not. When you're involved in a court case, you are the lawyer on that case, you need to be there. That's it. You know what I mean? You need to be there daily. And if that trial lasts for however long it lasts, you need to be there. So it just was something that part of it didn't appeal to me. I didn't want to, I didn't want to be in court all the time. I just didn't. And I didn't feel like it long term that would have affected me. It made me a much more callous person than I would have ended up being had I had done something else. And so I didn't want to be that type of person either. I think sometimes jobs shape you into something, and I was young enough at that time to recognize that type of work would shape me differently than what I wanted to be. So, yeah, but I love to study it. I mean, I had a ball studying it. I have a ball analyzing the court case. I didn't take that at the time as an actual job, but it was just something I enjoyed doing. So I just, and low key did anyway. I kind of just did that. I was kind of one of those people that just, oh, did you see that court trial? And did you see the Doty fire? And you start going all in, and they were just like, what are you talking about? Like, did you see how they apply, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and I just go all in, and everybody's like, this is not interesting. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, and I think that's how I started literally off the rip, just explaining things differently, and started breaking, because to let them know, no, this is interesting, but I'm gonna tell you how it's interesting. If you think back, and then I would just start explaining it that way, and so it just it just morphed into me doing it in, like, on camera. It wasn't even intentional. It was just something I was already doing, that by the time I went to explain it, and people just liked the explanation, it became popular among the people that follow me because of the way that I was explaining it. But realistically speaking, I already explained it like that. So it just was me just doing what I normally do. And it just was recorded and people liked it. My first case was George Floyd. George Floyd. I'll never forget that. It was the first time I was ever on the internet, and I followed it for the first time every day. Because back in the day, I had the time to go every day. And I went every day, and I think they ended up paying some of us for it, on this George Floyd case. And just literally having an interest and a fascination in this case, breaking down the legal process. And I would get people saying, what does this mean? And I would say, it means this. And they would say, what does this mean? And so I started doing it automatically. Like, I would say, when they did, I don't know, the statute of blank blank, that means, and I would just say what it meant, because I knew that a lot of people had that question. So it literally just, it was just me being me, basically. That's what I do, how I explain things in that much detail, just to get you to understand what's interesting about what I'm talking about, I guess. So yeah, so George Floyd, to answer that question. So no, I wasn't surprised at the outcome of that trial. I actually looked at it, and kind of prepared for it all along the way, and to sort of follow the trial every day like that. I wasn't shocked. So no, there wasn't even a moment when I was following the trial that I actually doubted it. And so you'll see me do that now when I do my analyst. I'll tell you how the lawyers are doing, and like you know, what is likely to come from what they are doing. And that's just years of having sat in courtrooms every day. It was part of how we learned at this particular place. And I could do mute court really well. And I just naturally had a talent for interpreting how to put, what this law is actually saying on a federal level, to take it to what the state level is meaning, and then applying it to the actual trial. And I did it in college. I mean, I did it in law school. So I was just literally just being myself, just applying. When I hear certain things, I'm like, oh, that law does not work like that. You should know better. You are a prosecutor, or you should know better. You're a defense attorney. Not scolding them, but just saying, oh, I could see how this is going to trip up the jurors. So it's kind of like me just being myself again, because I find it fascinating. So, I explain it in a way, that I think would hopefully be equally as fascinating to you. And it just works. So I stuck with it. When I took them off, there was a channel when I took them off. I was like, I'm not doing court trials on this one. And you guys literally were like, where are the court trials? Like, if I go too long now, everybody's like, where's the trials at? Like, you don't see this trial going on? So you guys start sending me, thank you, by the way. You guys start sending me stuff. Like, do you not see that there's a trial going on? Okay, we need the analysis. Here's this trial. Here's the backstory. Go ahead and start following it, so we can keep up with what's happening. So, so I put it back, started doing trials again. So, yeah. It's not that I didn't like doing it. It's just that I was like, oh, maybe we don't need them, since I did so many from before. But people were like, where are your trials? Like, I like this other stuff. This is great, but I need a trial. Like, kind of thing. That was going on. So, yeah. So I like different things. So I cover all my different subjects. It's part of information part. So there's news where you'll see me cover like the stories of the day, top trials, where you'll see me cover like top trials. You know, you'll see me cover, and then anything information based, pretty much stuff that I've learned or read or heard. Lately, as I had this channel, and this started to grow, I literally, you guys send me stuff, so you'll be like, hey, can you? And from the right off the rip, from day one of being on the internet for the first time with George Floyd, I always fact check. So I don't ever say stuff random. And if I'm wrong and I did the research, I will fix it and retract it, like in real time most of the time. So I always thought that that was important when I was giving out information. All right. I feel like we're on a roll here. This is probably the longest video I've ever done. But I have the time, and it's alive. You know, I'll keep it up for a minute, but you probably won't keep it up too long. So if you're not coming in now, that's another reason why I say hit the notification bell. Most of the time, I think my lives should be live. So I just leave them live. I don't really think to have the intent on people coming back to look at it. I think that, you know, I would rather people just come in when we're talking, and then that way we can sort of like bond in that sort of a way. Yes, 100 people have already said they can't see me. I decided today because I was going to be on long, and I knew that I was going to answer questions at the end, to not be visible. That's all. I will be back. You guys, don't worry. Just not to. I mean, sometimes I'll do it with the. So District 4, yeah, it's actually a logo. It's actually so I basically got that from literally the areas in Los Angeles. One of the districts is 4, and it's the area that I did all my reporting in the beginning. So it was kind of like an homage to where I was getting all my information from, which was District 4. So they said, what do you want to name it? And I said, District 4. And they were like, okay. Because it literally, at that time, I literally got all of my stories, all of my information, all of my interviews, came out of that district. And those of you from Los Angeles know what District 4 actually is. It's where everything is. So basically, I was living there at the time. And I thought, since I'm getting all my information from District 4, I might as well tell people where I'm coming from. And I'm coming from District 4. And so it's just stuck. All of my adult life in Los Angeles, but I'm from San Diego. Still California, SoCal, but you saw me in Florida. When did you see me in Florida? You did not see me in Florida. I was not there recently. No. But nice to think that you thought. Nice to know you were looking. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I feel like we've made some good headway, some good time. I'm probably on here too long, but I feel like I wanted to make sure I got everything out that I needed to get out. And for those of you that are just popping in here, we started at the beginning of this video talking about digital currency. I broke that down in great detail, and the second half became a Q&A about other videos that I actually have. Women video, what woman video? I don't know if I ever said I don't believe in ERA. I said I am not the ERA that I agreed with the original ERA, but not what it turned into. And the original ERA was one thing, jobs and equal pay, which evolved into this sort of women empowerment, which really was women leaving abusive men, into I don't do anything for a man, I don't need a man, which sort of came from the LGBTQ, I hope I'm saying that correctly, community. And then it morphed all of these theories together to say that women should have it all. And I was merely pointing out that that wasn't true. We lied. It didn't work. We made it seem like we were all empowered and women were doing all this, and we had Hugh Hefner, and we were gonna, be free, and none of it was true. If you look back now at Hugh Hefner and what was going on during that time, okay, they were being exploited. Okay, that's not what they said at the time. You think of women empowerment. Yes, we wanted women that were stuck in these unhealthy relationships and with these toxic men to feel that they could leave, that they could work, that they could find a job, that they can be empowered to be without him. But because he was toxic, not just leaving men every day and just saying, I don't need you and all of these things. So that's what I was explaining in that video. I'm letting people know that and the We Have It All movement, which sort of bled into after women empowerment, the original women empowerment, it sort of bled into this sort of, you know, bad bees area. It morphed into something else. When we said we had it all, it wasn't true either, because we really were struggling. We were raising kids by ourselves. There were more single mothers that came out of that movement. We were not understanding, what the necessity of a full nuclear family was. We were lost. So I was just saying there was a lot of things that came out of that from us telling this lie to ourselves that we were actually doing all of these movements were one movement and it just moved women forward. And it isn't true. Because if you ask a feminist now, she's going to say a whole bunch of stuff, and she's going to take bits and pieces of each movement and throw it into one pile. I've spoken to many of them with an open mind, because I really was like, well, am I missing the mark on this women's, I don't understand what feminism is today. Somebody explained it to me, and I spoke to a girl, and she was all gun-ho on feminists and equal, and women. And I said, tell me what that means. And she was like, you're a woman, And I said, no, I'm not a feminist, though. I'm a traditional woman. So explain. And she literally took all those movements and put them all together in one, which were all separate. They all meant different things. They had different points and agendas. And she put them all together. And she said, now I'm empowered. And I'm like, empowered to do what? And she looked at me for 20 minutes. It wasn't that long, but she looked at me as if to say, I'm not sure, but she didn't want to admit she wasn't sure. So she was like, empowered to, and she started going into this tirade using all of the quotes from the different eras of these sort of hodgepodge of thought process for now what she called feminism. And I realized something that confusing can't be healthy. So that's kind of how I did say I did say something about the LGBTQ community telling us we don't need a man. And that is where that came from. I'm sorry. And I wasn't saying it in a mean way. I was saying that's where that came from. And I also said in that same video that you didn't. But the straight women did. So we were living somebody else's reality by saying we didn't need a man. We actually did. Maybe you did have your own money and all of these things, but they serve more of a purpose for our lives than, just money all the time. So I felt like when that movement came in, it sort of latched on to ERA, which was completely separate. I said that as if to say we needed to separate all those movements at some point, but we didn't. We actually pulled them closer together. Oh, I'm getting hate mail. Jesus, girls. Okay. If you can explain to me what it means that you don't need a man, what do you mean by that? If you can give me a satisfactory answer, I will become a feminist post haste. I will do it instantly. You will be the first person to have ever convinced me that I don't need a man. Yeah, but I can take care of myself. Listen, there's lots of kids that are mature enough to take care of themselves. Does that mean they don't need parents? I need you're going to give me more than that. That's not working. That you have your own money. What does that mean? That you have your own money? So you don't need him because you have. So you're only using men for money? No, you have other reasons for being with him. So that's not a good one either. You won't obey him. He can't tell you what to do. You guys, these are the reasons. Yeah, but what you're doing, and when you say stuff like he won't tell me what to do, then that means you're telling him what to do, or or you're saying it's equal, or what does that mean? So it's equal. What do you mean that it's equal? Relationships are not equal. Everybody has a spot. Again, so you're saying you don't need a man because you can financially take care of yourself. So you don't need any emotional support at all. You just get that from outside sources. Okay, so you do. Okay, you would like that. So that means you need him in a way. What that thought process does do is it makes the man feminine because somebody's taking care of somebody. So if you're earning more money than him and all the money, and you're telling him you don't need him, and you're saying you can get rid of him when you need to get rid of him, who's you're doing his job. So since you're doing his job, you don't need him because you won't allow him to do it. I always said this, I think I said in that video, go in your boss's office, do their job, and see how they react to you. Just give it a try. You don't have to argue with me. When you're saying men are being mean to you, they're being mean to you because you're emasculating them. You're doing their job. That's why they're not really they're mean probably because they're not going about it in a respectful way. But what they're basically yelling at you about is what your boss would do if you went in there and started doing their job. Go in your boss's office and just like do what you would do at home with your guy. Just go in there and be like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. I got for those women that like to take over. What? Just move. I'm going to just do this for you. And he's like, wait a minute, I'm qualified to do this job. That's why I'm in it and you work for me. I don't need you to do my job. He's not saying that because he doesn't respect your job. He's saying, do it and stop being in here doing mine. You're hindering me from actually getting work done. You see? So I feel like when you go all in and you're being a feminist and don't open my door and don't do this and you're leaving him lost. He doesn't know what to do. You're just leaving him hanging. He's just basically, I mean, if you start doing your boss's job and they let you, he's not going to know how to do it after a while. Because all that information that he would normally be getting to apply to his work, they're giving to you. So you can even leave him out and still do the job. So now he becomes an accessory at his own job. So that's what I'm using that as an analogy. I don't know if it's a good one, but how feminism, you're not strong. You're just doing what you're not supposed to. You're just taking somebody's job, basically. You're doing what you're not allowing him to do. It's still being done. You really do need him to do it because guess what happens at the end for those of you that are young and don't see the outcome? You start burning yourself out. Look how many more women lost their hair each year as opposed to before. Look at how many more women have alopecia or stress or anxiety or, all of these things tell you something. That's your body explaining to you you're doing too much. So when you're doing too much and you say you don't need help, you're lying because your body's telling you differently. Your body's saying, listen, I'm falling apart here. How many more warning signs do I have to tell you that it's not working? So when women started falling apart, that's how you can indicate that that's not working for you. No disrespect to your opinions and what you're saying, as I hope you wouldn't disrespect mine. Never thought about it. I know, because sometimes you just say stuff. I mean, not you personally, but people, women just say stuff because we're so used to hearing those terms, women empowerment, and I'm going to be empowered, but they don't go back and look at the outcome of what happened with that. And we're not empowered at all. We are more lost than ever. I mean, we don't even have a definition for what the problem is. We just know, we're having problems. Look what happened when Jada went all in on not supporting Will for protecting her. She said she didn't need protection. And what ended up happening as that relationship began to finally, slowly crumble. What are you saying to him when you're saying, I don't need your protection? You're saying, I don't need you here. You're taking his job. You don't think it's his job. You think it's your job to protect yourself. And therefore, I don't need you. I can take care of myself. And then ultimately, he's going to be like, okay, I guess you can. Goodbye. Now, I don't believe there aren't any good men. So, I mean, I hear people say that. What do you mean by there are no good men? What do you mean by a good man? You mean you have to take care of yourself because there's no good men? We've been emasculating men for generations. So how do we, it's been a minute. So how do you get that back after you have basically destroyed somebody's purpose? It's not every man. No, of course not. But every man, like anybody, men have different experiences, just like women have different experiences. Okay, I got you. Okay, let's move forward. I wanted an explanation. It's the same stuff I've always heard. So I don't expect you to have to agree with me. I just want you to think about what you're saying, just like you asked me to think about what you're saying. And I'll listen to you and really run over in my mind, because I really wanted a solid answer. I've just never received one that didn't include displacement or emasculation. I need to, someone always tells me that. I do need to do more videos. I do, and when I have the time, I probably should do more. And it's one of the reasons why when I do lives, I do them for you guys, these guys that just keep coming back and keep coming back, no matter, how many days I missed, or, whether or not, they're just ready when I post. So I do appreciate that, and I thank you for that. And it's seen me through multiple channels, because I would have been way farther along had I, had not have to start over a couple times. But I do thank you for that. And I tell you guys thank you every chance I get. So this is one of the ways I'm thanking you. Ask me anything, I will answer. So it's kind of a bonding moment. Yeah, somebody said they don't have mentors anymore. They're out there. You just have to be willing to listen. You know what I mean? You have to let somebody that has been where you're trying to go guide you. I mean, you can't take advice from anybody that is true, but you also but you need to take advice from people it's like if I want to be a doctor, but I'm getting advice from a lawyer. This doesn't mean he's not capable. Obviously, the person's capable. They're a lawyer. But it's not what I want to be. So why would I ask a lawyer how to be a doctor? Doesn't make sense. So I took advice basically from people that had already finished what I was doing. Like, they were older. They had already been down that road. They just stepped in. You get to a point, I guess, where you have nothing to lose. It's time to give back. People have done enough for you. So and I think that's where my mentors were at the time. They were like, hey, I've done my part. I'm basically retiring. I want to take a young person that's eager like this under my wing, and give them some ins and outs and kind of help them through this process, because it's different when you've actually gone through it versus if you're new to it, or if you haven't really experienced it, because there's a lot of times when people say you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, and it's an advice that makes sense for something else but is essential for you to do in what you're trying to do. So you have to you have to listen. And I don't feel like a lot of people nowadays just want to listen. When I met my mentor, I was willing to listen to him. And that's why he kept giving me help and guidance, because I was willing to listen. I didn't say, "But you know what, old man? I got this. I can build a career. I'm smart. I'm educated. I can do it." I never took that approach with him. I really said, you know more than I do, so I'm here to learn from you. So, what do you think is the best advice on this? And why do you think that's the best advice? And he would be like, "Well, for what you're trying to do, I get what I get what they're saying, but, this is why it works if you do it this way." And then it was just kind of that kind of thing. But so that I say all that to say they're out there. You have to be willing to listen. How many careers have I had? Careers? Like maybe two actual careers. But I mean, I've done different things as it applies to those jobs, because different jobs, because I like to learn. So, and offer, just, I think you're here to do a service. So I feel like that's part of serving. I'm not in a rush to just retire and do nothing. That's just me. You wish you had been from the beginning. Well, actually, in the beginning, we were talking about digital currency, but it turned into a Q&A on the second half. No, I don't ever do videos this long. This is why I'm like getting ready to get off here, because I feel like without thought, I just wanted to go as long as you guys will take me, but you guys go pretty long, so I figure it's been a minute. I didn't know that. I don't know how long you guys were going to keep me today. This is the longest I've ever gone, because I usually cut it off before I usually cut it off at some point, but I wanted to go because I don't always go live. I don't always do videos. I'm not going to be, I didn't really have a limit today. I had time for the first time in a long time. So this type of thing. All right, so with that, and having said all that, yeah, you always tell me to go longer. I figure I think I satisfied that, didn't I? Do I think I'm more serious or more funny? What do you mean? You can be both. I mean, not at the same time, but you can have both elements of your personality, as you can see from my TikTok to my. How do I stay in shape? Oh, well, for a minute people were calling me fat, but um, I guess somebody saw my whole body at one point. But no, I work out a lot, and I eat what I in smaller portions, but I do eat just regular eating, and I learned that when I had a time period of Jenny Craig, and people were getting off of the program for the maintenance, what we called the maintenance program at the time. And I was young, I was about 16. They got onto this maintenance program, and everybody was gaining weight back because they didn't figure out how to eat. And then I learned that Weight Watchers teaches you with regular food. So I took that method on eating with regular food instead of having my portions done for me. I learned how to make my own portions and not go over a certain calorie count and all of these types of things. So yeah, I don't think exercise is enough. I think you have to live the whole lifestyle. So I stay fit by living that lifestyle. So sometimes I will park far away and walk up to the building, or I'll take the stairs, no matter how high they are, or you know, I will get it in, with some squats or something, just to make sure I did something for the day. I try to be outside a lot. I walk if I'm in an area that's safe and I can walk in. So these types of things. Oh, you saw my that's on my TikTok channel. Yeah, I have a pretty good hair and skin care routine. I'm not big on makeup all the time. I do wear it, but I don't think it should mask bad skin. So, and you have to wear it too thickly when you do. So I will wear it sometimes if I have some blemishes and stuff, but on a regular, I don't like to have a lot of makeup on. So I do take good care of my skins just so I can wear it, without makeup. Yeah, I don't, you'll see me jump on here with no makeup on. Now, I don't recommend, but 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 yeah, no, all those products I actually do use them. Yeah, they're in my actually in my bathroom. So, and you'll see me switch out the video every now and then because sometimes I buy new stuff or I'll try something different, and you'll see me like kind of talk about the new stuff. But yeah, I use all that stuff that I put on there. For those of you that don't know, it's an older video off my TikTok where I showed some of the products that I use. I wasn't advertising for them. I just genuinely use them. Pond's cold cream. That is my staple, okay? I will mention Pond's cold cream probably forever because that's the one thing. Like my mom has been using Noxzema since I can remember. I like Pond's cold cream. That's my thing. So I use Pond's cold cream because it's like to me the best thing for your skin, and it deep cleans, but it doesn't like dry it out type of thing. Yeah, sometimes you gotta pay. I don't think Pond's cold cream is expensive. I can't remember, but I'm gonna buy it no matter what it costs. I just like the product, so not that I throw away money frivolously, but in that case, it's probably worth it. Somebody's talking about the last video I did. Yes, yes, that's some nice hair. That's all I'm gonna say on all of those guys. Definitely. If you check my TikTok, it's there's some truth on there that everybody was happy about. Yeah, sometimes I turn comments off depending upon what the video is. If it's like an inflammatory type video or it's a video that will like create some sort of extra, I will just turn the comments off. I will just make it so you can't respond to anything. You can talk amongst yourself. You can come in live if I talk about it. But I don't like to, in a case like that, like if you're looking on the TikTok video, the comments are probably off because I don't want people comparing them. They all had nice hair. So I didn't want the comparison there. I wanted them to speak on their own and everybody's different textures and hairstyles be what it is. Rather than having a bunch of women come in there and say, well, I like so and so, and look at it. And that sort of being the discussion. I just was like, we don't need to do that. We just need to enjoy and keep it moving. So I didn't keep all my videos. I put them on other stations, but again, that it depends on what the content is. And sometimes the content is better served as a live content, like this, for example, because you're there in real time. Everybody's going with what's happening in real time. But to go back and look at it, it might be too long. It might be not relevant at the time. It might be, just something that I like to do for the people that follow me all the time because they like to ask me questions and stuff like that. And I can't always do videos on question asking because it gets too long. But I generally like to keep alive. So just have it, maybe leave it up for a little while sometimes, and then take it down. Or, take it out, put it into private. Oh, thank you. Somebody said I won against the people that were trying to take me down. Thank you. I mean, it wasn't a win or loss. It was just something that shouldn't have been done, basically. There's no need to be doing that. So I was going to, keep going just because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I couldn't leave you guys all hanging. I was feeling that. I wasn't sure if it was true until you followed me to the other stations. And then I was like, okay. So I would be like just leaving a group of people just hanging out of nowhere. I do have a successful family. Yes, I do. I'm proud of every last one of them. Yes, I am. I talk about them all the time. I do. I do. I'm very proud of my parents. I love my sister. You know, she's successful in her own right, and we just, just a, just a, that's my fams. You know, I love them. My sons, I love them. So I don't remember that video. Which video are you talking about? Like, what was the? Oh, abuse. Oh, yeah. So I did discuss the different types of abusers. It's still abuse at the end of the day. I wasn't justifying the abuse. I was saying this is how it looks for these different women. So there were different versions of how they came across as abusers, just so you could spot it out, number one. And number two, I never leave you hanging without telling you how to solve the problem at the end, or not solve it, but just giving you some tips to help you at the end, because it's a very serious thing. I definitely have seen enough of the end result of it for me to say what I learned and what I got to observe from talking and speaking to these women. I have not been abused myself, no. Yeah, I don't think I'd make it. I'd probably just leave. I just don't. I don't know. I just think it's harder to do if you've been with that person for longer. So, and mostly because you don't know where to go at that point. So that was the purpose of that video, was more to tell you where to go, because that time often comes for these women every single time, and the process is always the same. It's like an addict, or someone that's trying to get to sobriety. The process is almost always the same. So I would see them at the end, being relieved that they had the information that they had. So this, I just shared it with everybody else. All right. I've covered quite a bit here today. And I thank you all for being here. And this is the longest video. Somebody just said that. Like, this is the longest video I've ever done. Yeah, this is the longest live I've ever had. No, I like, I do enjoy. I do enjoy it. It's not a chore necessarily. It's just me finding time, and then when I have the time, just basically mustering up the energy to come on and it's a lot easier today because I could just, do other things while I was talking to you, because you couldn't physically see what I was doing. So I could like do stuff, and then, it not be noticeable, and still keep up the conversation the way that I'm doing. So, well, I mean, I got a lot of complaints too about people saying that they wanted to see me. So I guess I can do a little bit of both. How about that? How about we do both? Leave it at that. Is that okay? Okay, if that's okay with everybody, I'm game. We'll do both. Sometimes I'll not show just to make sure I put out a video, and then other times I'll put out a video. I like to do videos when it's stuff I want you to see multiple times. I definitely, and sometimes I'll do a live and a video, but it's because I want you to watch the video multiple times. I want you to be able to have that information multiple times. It's like the same thing when I was doing financial literacy and I was taking it in stages, and I told you to, because you won't retain all the information, make sure you watch it multiple times. So I stopped saying that, but the concept's still the same, especially when it's like abuse, or one of those like really harsh subjects, AI, or if it's one of those, job stuff, or, information about a particular case. It's designed for you to get the information, to look at it multiple times, to retain it, right? It's just how it works. I mean, I feel like when you listen to something the first time, you only retain so much of it. But if you're one of those people that really need that information, or this information is valuable to you, you should look at it at least twice. All right, you guys. Let's see what else. All right, thank you so much. This is very long, so you might get the first half. If you're don't go, you always say that, and this is long. Make sure you at least watch the first half of the video, which involves digital currency, and then probably midway through you'll get to the part about the Q&A. And you don't have to watch that part. That's really mostly for people just follow me all the time to answer their questions. But the digital currency part is very up to date. It's as of the date of this live, and it's very informative. And I cite my sources also towards the end, so you'll know when the video is getting ready to transition. Once I cite the sources, it starts to transition to the other part. Yes, do watch many of the videos, and you will get something out of it. Yeah, yeah. Very first one's when I pulled the channel back up again. That was after that I had those tragedies that took place. All right. Thank you so much. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for those of you that stuck to the end. I mean, and still stayed. I see the people that stayed here for a long period of time. Many of you came in and out, and I was okay with that too. Thank you so much, you guys. I guess I'll go. You'll be able to see me next time. I got a little scolding for not being shown, but this allowed me to be able to still have a lot and then do other stuff. So it was able to be longer even because I was able to run around and do other stuff. Thank you so much, you guys. And now I hope you heard that. That's a kiss and a blow. I'll see you guys next time.